My son-in-law poisoned my daughter's insulin like he did his first wife, but he forgot I spent 29 years hunting criminals. I am constantly blacking out at work, Dad. No one knows why, including the physicians. On that Tuesday morning, my daughter called me, her voice quivering. I was repairing a 1969 Mustang in my garage. For some reason, I put down my wrench and snatched my phone from Emily's lips the second I picked them up. I inquired, "What do you mean passing out?" as I walked toward my pickup. "How many times?" I inquired. 4 times this week. I just passed out in the middle of the pharmacy yesterday. Dad, I'm nervous. Despite taking my insulin exactly as directed, my blood sugar levels keep decreasing. I work as a pharmacist. Everything is making sense, even though I know what I'm doing. The driveway was already being retracted by me. Though Emily's downtown Denver home was 50 minutes away, I could reach her in 35. "Did you inform Ethan?" A halt followed. A far too lengthy silence. He thinks I'm hyperventilating. His words trail off with a pause before he finally says, "I'm probably just stressed about the new promotion." I had mastered the art of reading silences better than most people read words after 29 years of investigating financial crimes for the IRS. The stillness conveyed all the information I required. There was a major problem. Michael Donovan here. At 64 years of age, I have spent the better part of 3 decades tracking down financial traces, exposing fraud, and finally locking up white-collar offenders. For financial gain, I have witnessed many atrocities, including adultery, child theft from parents, and the ruin of lives by business partners. Still, you probably wouldn't expect it to affect your own family. You never imagine you'll have to use those abilities to safeguard your own daughter. It should have been obvious to me. Every indicator was present. Emily's health piqued Ethan's curiosity 4 months ago. Consistently pushed for her to revise her will, get more life insurance, and get a comprehensive physical. I naively believed he was merely acting as a doting spouse. Emily was making about $185,000 per year as a lead pharmacist at Denver General, where she had just been promoted. Ethan made around $190,000 per year as a hospital administrator at a separate institution. The young couple achieved great success. The future could be rationally planned for. Yet, those responsible deeds took on a sinister undertone upon hearing my daughter's terrified voice. It took me 31 minutes after that to reach their Cherry Creek townhouse. In the driveway stood Ethan's BMW. Work was his proper place to be. Ethan, who was dressed for the gym, opened the door to me as I knocked, his expression one of astonishment. "Michael, what are you doing here?" "Emily contacted me." The woman claimed that she had been experiencing episodes of fainting. "Oh, that." He waved his hand in dismissal. "She's fine. Just needs to adjust her medication. You know how she gets anxious about health stuff." A doctorate-holding pharmacist was my daughter. Concerns regarding her health never frightened her. In terms of health, she was more knowledgeable than the average doctor. "Where is she?" "Resting upstairs." "But honestly, Michael, you didn't need to drive all the way here. I've got it under control." Through him, I shoved. "I'll just look in on her." Emily lay pallid and perspiring on the bed. She made an effort to smile at me, but her frailty was plain to see. "Hey, Dad, you didn't have to come." Leif. With her hand in mine, I perched on the edge of her bed. Clammy and chilly it was. "Tell me exactly what's been happening." With a sidelong glance toward Ethan's lurking at the door, she returned her attention to me and said, "I don't know. For the past 18 days, I keep having these hypoglycemic episodes. My blood sugar just crashes. Even though I'm monitoring everything. I've been diabetic since I was 14. I know my body. This isn't normal. Have you changed anything? Diet? Exercise? Insulin brand?" "No." "Well." She trembled once more. "Ethan bought me a new insulin supply about 1 month ago. Said he got a good deal through his hospital connections, but it's the same brand I always use." My body was beeping with every inclination. Remaining composed, I spoke. "Where do you keep it?" "Downstairs in the fridge." "Why?" "Just curious. You know me, always methodical." I stroked her palm. "Get some rest. I'm going to make you some lunch." Downstairs, I went. As he sat in the living room, Ethan continued to text. I opened the refrigerator and discovered Emily's insulin in the kitchen. 4 vials, identical in batch. I photographed the labels, lot numbers, and everything else using my phone. The next thing I knew, I had been investigating financial crimes for 29 years, so it came naturally to me. I considered the money-making factors and the people who would gain from Emily's demise. An old colleague of mine, Victor Alvarez, had retired from the Internal Revenue Service and gone into private investigation. I retrieved my phone and dialed his number. "Victor, I need you to pull some records for me, quietly." "What's going on, Mike?" "My daughter's sick, her husband's being weird about it. I need to know if there's any life insurance I don't know about. Give me names and social security numbers." I recited the details of Emily and Ethan. "And Victor, check for any history on Ethan. Previous marriages, Criminal records, lawsuits, anything. You think he's dirty? I think my daughter keeps passing out, and her husband doesn't seem concerned enough. In my experience, when someone isn't worried about the right things, they're worried about getting caught. I brought Emily's soup and toast up to her room and observed while she ate. An opportunity to spend time with my daughter was my response to Ethan's offer to take over, which I declined. Instead of disputing, he merely returned to the lower level. I departed, but I did not return home, once Emily dozed off. The 5-block drive to a coffee shop gave me the time I needed to wait for Victor to return my call. After 55 minutes, he gave a call. "Mike, you're going to want to sit down." "I'm already sitting. What did you find?" "Ethan Crawford has a $4.5 million life insurance policy on Emily. I took it out 3 months ago. She's the insured. He's the beneficiary." A chill ran down my spine. $4.5 million? That's not all. Ethan was married before. Wife's name was Lauren. She died 2 years ago. Diabetic, just like Emily. Died from complications related to hypoglycemia. I clenched my fists over my phone till they turned white. How old was she? 33. And Mike. Ethan collected a $2.8 million life insurance policy from her death. Christ Jesus. There's more? I pulled Ethan's financials. He's drowning in gambling debts. He owes about $525,000 to various creditors and some very unfriendly people in Las Vegas. His credit cards are maxed out. He's 5 months behind on the mortgage for the townhouse that's in Emily's name. The guy is desperate. I had already turned the key to my truck on. "Send me everything you have, I'm going to the police." "Mike, wait. What you have is circumstantial. A suspicious death 2 years ago in another state. Financial troubles. An insurance policy. That's not enough for an arrest. You need hard evidence." He had a point. He had my full confidence. Over the course of my career at the IRS, I witnessed firsthand how our hasty decisions, in the absence of solid proof, cause scores of cases to collapse. Then I need to get evidence. Be careful. If Ethan is what you think he is, and he knows you're onto him, Emily is in more danger, not less. I returned to Emily's townhouse by car. Instead, I waited in a parking spot across the street this time. After getting out of his car, Ethan departed in his BMW around 6:15. After waiting 8 minutes, I used the spare key that Emily had given me many years ago to unlock the door. I made a beeline for Ethan's home office. Even though the door was locked, I had picked up some useful knowledge over the years. Choosing it took me no more than 2 minutes. Bills, statements from credit cards showing charges at casinos, notes of past due from the mortgage company, and letters from collection agencies filled his desk. The man's debts weighed him down. I took pictures of everything. I located his laptop afterwards. The lack of a password made it clear that he didn't think anyone would ever look. I began copying everything: files, financial documents, emails. After inserting a thumb drive, I noticed a folder labeled insurance documents just as I was going to leave. Upon opening it, I found the $4.5 million policy for Emily was accompanied by an additional document, an email correspondence between an individual named Thomas and an insurance provider. If the death was determined to have been caused by natural causes, Ethan wanted to know how long the claim procedure usually took to pay out and whether an investigation would be conducted. Prior to Emily's illness, the emails were sent 3 months ago. All along, he had been plotting this action. I made a copy of everything, turned off the computer, and left. As I began to accelerate, Ethan's BMW swung onto the roadway. While he parked and went inside, I dove down and watched. A tremor ran through my body, out of anger, not fear. Without missing a beat, I made my way to the Denver Police Department and quickly sought out Detective Rebecca Hayes. It had been 5 years since we'd collaborated on a fraud case. She believed in my gut feelings and was meticulous and intelligent. She became more glum as I gave her my findings. "This is bad, Mike. But we can't arrest someone for having debt and life insurance." It was in Nevada that his previous wife met a similar fate. Different court system, and the cause of death was determined to be unintentional. We'd need to prove this as a pattern, and we'd need physical evidence that he's actually doing something to harm Emily. Now, what about the insulin? Can you test it? If we can legally obtain it, yes. But if you just grab it from their house, any defense attorney will get it thrown out. We need Emily's consent or a warrant. Get the warrant based on what? Your suspicions? A previous wife who died in another state from natural causes? Judge won't sign it, Mike. Not yet. I wanted to turn the desk upside down. So, what do? Wait for him to kill my daughter? She drew closer to the subject. No. You get Emily somewhere safe. You get her to voluntarily give us her insulin for testing, and you get her to file a police report about feeling unsafe. That gives us grounds to investigate further. Once we test that insulin, if it's been tampered with, we have him. And if he realizes she's onto him, that's why you move fast. From the parking lot, I contacted Emily that night. "Honey, I need you to pack a bag and come stay with me for a few days." Dad, I'm fine. Really, I just need to rest. Emily, I'm asking you to trust me. Don't tell Ethan. Just pack a bag and leave. I'll explain everything when you get here. A brief hush fell over the room. You found something, didn't you? Intelligence ran in my family. That was something her mother had passed on to her. Yes. And I need you safe before I can tell you what. Okay, give me an hour. Ethan's going to the gym. I'll leave then. Emily's vehicle came into my driveway 1 hour and 10 minutes after that. Clearly, she was petrified. Inside, I escorted her to a seat and proceeded to inform her of everything. As her color changed from white to green, she bolted for the restroom and puked. She returned with trembling hands. His first wife. He told me she died in a car accident. He lied. He's been trying to kill me. Yes. She broke down in tears. The terrible, wrenching screams of betrayal, terror, and fury, not the gentle tears of melancholy. While my baby was breaking apart, I held her close and reminded her of the promises I'd made to her from the moment she was born. I'll protect you. I swear to God, Emily, I will protect you. We made our way to the station 2 days after that. Emily completed an official report and delivered her insulin. The insulin was urgently sent to the lab by Detective Hayes. Within 8 hours, the results were returned. 2 of the vials contained insulin that had been diluted with saline solution. Almost 4 times the usual strength of insulin had been added to the third vial, making it completely concentrated. Emily risked developing dangerous hypoglycemia shock if she had used that vial. Without help, she would have perished in her home. That jackass, Hayes remarked as he perused the report. He was killing her slowly with the diluted vials, making her think her diabetes was out of control, making her doubt herself. Then, when the time was right, he'd switch her to the concentrated vial. She'd inject it, thinking it was her normal dose, and she'd crash hard. By the time anyone found her, it would just look like a tragic accident. Diabetic woman who'd been having blood sugar problems took her insulin, and something went wrong. Can you arrest him now? Oh, we're doing better than that. We contacted Nevada. They're reopening Lauren Crawford's death investigation. And, Mike, Lauren's family kept her insulin vials. They're testing them now. How long before you bring Ethan in? We're getting the warrant now. Give us 3 hours. At my residence, I escorted Emily home. She did nothing while sitting on my couch. I loved him, she whispered softly. I trusted him. How did I not see it? Because he's done this before. He's practiced. Emily, this is not your fault. His first wife. Did she know at the end? I don't know, sweetheart. I hope she didn't. I hope she just thought she was sick. Because knowing Dad, knowing that someone you love wants you dead, that they've been planning it, that they've been lying to your face while they poison you, that's worse than dying. With my arm around her, I sat down next to her. But you're not dying, you're alive. And he's going to pay for what he did to you, and to Lauren, and to whoever else he's hurt. Someone called me. Detective Hayes. We've got him arrested at his office. And, Mike, Vegas PD just confirmed. Lauren's insulin was tampered with exactly the same way. He did this before. He practiced on his first wife, learned from it, and tried to do it better this time. What happens now? Now we build the case. We've got him on attempted murder, fraud, and we're coordinating with Nevada on murder charges for Lauren. The prosecutor thinks we can also get him on financial exploitation. Guy's looking at life without parole. Good. I observed the case progress throughout the subsequent month. As an excuse, Ethan's attorney attempted to say that the insulin manipulation had been accidental. Perhaps Emily had taken the wrong vials from the medical facility where she was employed. That collapsed when the prosecution presented evidence that the vials had been bought by Ethan from a supplier he had previously dealt with, rather than from Emily's hospital. Their next move was to claim Lauren's death had nothing to do with it. That all came crashing down when detectives in Nevada uncovered emails sent between Ethan and a life insurance agent 3 weeks prior to Lauren's death. In those emails, Ethan asked specific concerns regarding the claim procedure. The proof was indisputable. A record of Ethan's gambling debts found in the financial documents. Employees of a Las Vegas casino, who witnessed Ethan's tens of thousands of dollars in losses, provided testimony. According to medical records, Ethan bought insulin for Lauren and Emily, and their hypoglycemia episodes began not long after. Testimony from experts regarding the intentional manipulation of the insulin. Ethan sat through it all in court, continuing to play the victim and appear to be the worried husband. I gave testimony regarding my findings, the pattern I noticed, and the financial incentive. The jurors sat there, taking notes and keeping an eye on Ethan's body language. When someone stands to profit from another person's death and that person suddenly starts dying, you follow the money, I told the prosecutor when asked why I had become involved in investigating my son-in-law. I then turned to Ethan and said, because 29 years investigating financial crimes taught me one thing. The trail of money went directly to him. Redness washed over Ethan's face. It was the first time I noticed the mask breaking. Observe the fury underlying. You had no right, he yelled, his voice audible to every jury member present. She's my wife, this was none of your business. She's my daughter, I stated in a composed manner. And that makes it absolutely my business. The testing period was 5 weeks. For 8 hours, the jury deliberated, accused of everything. For his involvement in Emily's attempted murder and financial exploitation, Ethan received a 4-5-year prison sentence. His trial in Nevada was distinct from Lauren's, and he was found guilty of first-degree murder. He received a life sentence without the possibility of release as a result of that. The phrases would be presented in a linear fashion. At sentencing, the judge, a woman in her early 70s who had shown extraordinary patience throughout the trial, had a few last remarks. Mr. Crawford, you are a predator. You preyed on defenseless women, betrayed their trust, married them, and then mercilessly killed them for money. You exhibited zero empathy, zero conscience, zero remorse. Emily Donovan is only alive today because her father saw through your crimes. You made the fatal mistake of underestimating him. You thought he wouldn't see through your meticulously plotted scam because he was retired and just a caring father. Then she turned to me. Mr. Donovan, your daughter is alive because you paid attention, because you trusted your instincts, because you spent 29 years learning to recognize predators. This court commends you for your diligence and your courage. Emily and I stepped out of the courtroom into the Colorado sunshine after the sentencing. She appeared older than her 36 years due to the weight loss she experienced during the trial, but she was still alive. She had no danger. Her question was, what do I do now? Now you heal, you divorce him, you rebuild your life, and you never, ever doubt yourself again. I don't know if I can trust anyone again, Dad. You will. It'll take time, but you will. Because, Emily, what happened to you wasn't about your judgment, it was about his evil. He's a practiced con artist who's done this before. You didn't fail. You were targeted by a professional predator. She rested her head on my shoulder and whispered, I appreciate you seeing things I missed. That's what fathers are for. After 8 months, Emily found a new place to call home. As part of her recovery from the incident, she was attending therapy appointments 3 times weekly. After taking a leave of absence from her pharmacy job to recover mentally and physically, she was finally laughing again, albeit cautiously and with a bit of a stutter. At her new house, I assisted her in unloading boxes. We finished up, and she brewed some coffee while we sat on her balcony, taking in views of Denver below. I've been thinking about going back to school, she pointed out, getting my pharmacy license to specifically work in toxicology, helping other people recognize when medications have been tampered with. That's a great idea. I was contacted by members of Lauren's family. They intend to establish a fund in her honor to promote understanding of medical manipulation and domestic violence. My assistance was sought after. And I grinned. Your mother would be so proud of you. When Emily was 21 years old, her mother Margaret passed away from breast cancer. With an unwavering commitment to her patients, Margaret had worked as a nurse. Ethan would have been immediately visible to her had she been alive. For a long time, she had excellent people sense. Emily whispered, Lauren is on my mind a lot. She didn't have anyone to protect her. No one questioned it when she died. Ethan just collected his money and moved on to find the next target. But because of you, there won't be a next target. You stopped him. We stopped him, Dad. I lifted my mug of coffee, to stopping the bad guys. My cup was clinked by hers. And to dads who pay attention. As I drove home that night, thoughts of how near we had come to losing Emily raced through my mind. If I hadn't noticed the pause in her voice while we were on the phone, should I not have relied on my intuition? If my 30 years of training to spot manipulation and fraud hadn't been in vain. Ethan Crawford was rather proud of his intelligence, considered his system to be fully refined. I naively believed that a depressed, ill wife and her elderly father would be easy prey. His reasoning was that my expertise was no longer needed since I wasn't aggressively pursuing financial crimes. He perceived exactly what he desired. A caring father who may be ignored, controlled, or tricked. It was a mistake. For the simple reason that retiring does not render you any less of an investigator. The abilities remain, the instincts remain constant. Reading people, following evidence, and seeing when figures don't add up or stories don't make sense are all skills you'll never lose. It took Ethan Crawford 3 years to plot the murder of Emily. He looked into ways to dilute insulin. In order to rectify his errors, he reviewed Lauren's case. He built his financial alibi with great care. He believed he had attended to every detail. Unfortunately, there was something he failed to remember. He failed to remember that dads safeguard their daughters. That some dads have spent their whole lives perfecting their hunting techniques for him and other predators like him. Retirement does not mean that experience is lost. There will be more time to put it to use, that's all. A 6-4-year-old retired detective who paid attention when his daughter's voice trembled during a phone call ripped up his meticulously laid plan, and now he will spend the rest of his life behind bars thinking about that error and remembering that moment in court. Emily is doing well. It is true that Ethan is incarcerated. Finally, Lauren's family can rest easy. The right thing was done. I am reminded of the reason I dedicated 29 years to understanding evil whenever my phone rings and I hear Emily's voice, robust, healthy, and alive. The goal should not be post hoc punishment but rather prevention. There are those who believe that once you reach retirement age, your valuable years are over and you are reduced to nothing more than a dad, grandpa, or garage mechanic. That was also in Ethan Crawford's mind. He was mistaken. And there is the issue with underestimating individuals. You stop being cautious when you think someone is helpless, insignificant, or elderly simply because of that. Accidents happen, you do a poor job. Ethan made a mess. I was fully engaged. It is the reason my daughter is still alive. Before our anniversary, the store owner whispered, "Don't move." Then I heard the words that ended our marriage. I was standing in the dark of a bridal dressing room, when I overheard my wife laughing about replacing me, not divorcing me, not separating, just replacing me. The words passed through the thin wall like smoke. "After tomorrow night, everything will transfer. He won't know what he's signing." Another clinical voice responded, "The cognitive review will support it. Once the paperwork is completed, control shifts immediately," said my wife. That voice reflects 28 years of marriage. 28 years of shared mortgages, funerals, graduations, and peaceful Sunday mornings. "He won't see it coming," she added softly. "He trusts me." And in that small, dark area, surrounded by the scent of perfume and pressed satin, I understood something I hadn't pondered in nearly 3 decades of loving her. Trust may be weaponized. The anniversary party was meant to be simple. 28 years of marriage, 180 guests, our children coming in from opposite coasts, a string quartet in the backyard, champagne from Napa, and speeches on endurance, loyalty, and creating something lasting. That afternoon, I drove to Hartwell Boutique to pick up Victoria's dress, a deep navy gown she had picked with the deliberate pride of a lady who still cared what her husband thought of her. The sun was warm. I recall thinking how fortunate I was that we had gotten thus far. Hartwell has lived in town for 32 years. Denise, the owner, had personally tailored Victoria's outfit. When I walked in, the space was quiet save for the steady buzz of overhead lights and the subtle aroma of steamed fabric. "Jonathan," Denise replied, her voice weaker than normal, "you're early." I figured I'd surprise her, make sure everything's perfect. She did not smile. Instead, she moved around the counter, gripped my elbow, not violently, but firmly, and whispered, "Come with me right now." I laughed, thinking Victoria was here and Denise was planning a humorous reveal. But Denise did not laugh. She walked me past the racks of silk and lace before opening the door to a dressing room. "Stay here," she whispered. "Don't say a word." "Denise, what's this about?" She shook her head and stepped away. "You need to hear this for yourself." The door shut, the light switched off. I stood there, surrounded by mirrors and fabric, feeling silly and slightly annoyed. Then I heard a bell ring over the shop entrance. Victoria's voice was clear, familiar, and comforting. "Is it ready?" she asked. "Yes," Denise responded too enthusiastically. "Back by the fitting area." Footsteps approaching. Another set followed. A man's voice, which I dimly recognized from a recent supper. "Dr. Andrew Callahan is a neurologist. Victoria suggested I meet him after what she called a minor incident 7 months ago. It had only been a momentary dizzy spell during a board meeting. Stress, the emergency room doctor had stated. Dehydration. However, Victoria had pushed for follow-ups, memory tests, and appraisals. "You understand," Dr. Callahan remarked in a businesslike tone, "that once the cognitive review is filed, we can move forward legally." My heart started to pound. Victoria exhaled slowly. "I understand. I just need it done cleanly." "What about the power of attorney amendment?" he asked. "That is drafted. He will sign it tomorrow night. I'll explain that it's just contingency planning for after the party, when he's more relaxed." A third voice joined them, younger and smoother. "I've already prepared the transfer documents," he told me. "Once control shifts, we can restructure the assets before he realizes what's happening." I recognized that voice. Grant Holloway, a financial consultant 12 years younger than me, was suggested to us last year as someone who could help modernize Carter Holdings. Victoria's laughter echoed through the wall. "He will not realize. He still believes this is about simplifying things." "What about the assisted living placement?" Grant inquired. There was a pause. My lungs felt tight. "We won't need it right away," Victoria explained gently, "but it will be easier if the examination designates him as disabled. Gradual. Respectable. The youngsters will understand if the physicians prescribe it." The room appeared to tilt. Impaired. Assisted living. Control shifts. 28 years of marriage. Rang in my ears. "I'm not doing this to hurt him," Victoria explained calmly. "He has been slipping. He forgets stuff. He loses his focus. The board has noticed. That's why this needs to be done quickly," Dr. Callahan answered. "For everyone's protection." For everyone's protection. I leaned my back against the wall of that dressing room and felt something within me fracture. Yes, I had misplaced my car keys twice last month. Yes, I reread a paragraph from a report because my mind wandered. But I still managed a company with 240 employees. I am currently negotiating contracts. I clearly recall Victoria walking down the aisle in a cream silk gown that caught the light. He won't see it coming. Her words returned to me like a smack. And then comes the ultimate blow. Grant's voice fell. After tomorrow, you won't have to pretend anymore. Victoria did not respond immediately. When she spoke, her voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. I'm tired of pretending, she explained. Footsteps moved. Fabric rustled. I heard the zipper on her dress. I just want peace, she explained. Peace through replacement, through erasure. They talked for a few more minutes about timelines, signatures, and how to effectively explain things to our children. I stood there in the dark, my reflection multiplying in the mirror behind me. Every reflection asks the same question. How long? How long had this been going on, while I thought we were arranging a celebration? As they went, the shop doorbell rang again. Silence returned. A moment later, the dressing room door opened, letting light in. Denise stood there with tearful eyes. I'm sorry, she muttered. I stepped out slowly, my legs shaky. How long did you know? She swallowed. I overheard them 3 weeks ago. They have been coming in together. I did not want to believe it. Neither did I. I observed the clothing bag hanging on the rack. Victoria's anniversary dress, perfectly pressed. Prepare for a celebration. Did she mention anything about me? I asked. Denise hesitated. She said, you trust her. I let out a breath that seemed like it came from deep within my chest. 28 years, 2 children, and a shared existence started from nothing. And tomorrow night, in front of everyone we care about, she planned to discreetly take control of everything I had worked so hard for, including my autonomy. I took up the clothing bag. Thank you, I murmured to Denise, unsure what I was thanking her for. As I strolled out into the late afternoon sun, everything seemed the same. Cars passed. People laughed on the sidewalk. Somewhere, someone was mowing the yard. However, something basic had moved within me. Tomorrow night was not going to be an anniversary. It was going to be an execution. And if Victoria requested a performance, I would oblige. I drove home with Victoria's dress hanging in the back seat as proof. The late afternoon sunlight seeped through the windshield, warm and deceptively calm. For several kilometers, I gripped the driving wheel so firmly that my knuckles became white. Then something colder settled within me. Do not panic. Not in wrath. Calculation. If I came through the front door and confronted her, she would deny everything. Dr. Callahan would use clinical jargon. Grant would describe it as careful preparation, while I would become the unstable one. No. I'd heard enough to know that this would need patience. By the time I pulled into our driveway, my countenance had settled into a neutral, even sleepy expression. The house remained where it had always been, facing the lake we had chosen together 28 years ago, when we were young enough to imagine we would live forever. Victoria adored the scenery. She stated that the water made her feel tranquil. When I walked in, I could hear music from the kitchen. Ella Fitzgerald is Victoria's favorite. She was standing on the island, checking a stack of place cards for the anniversary meal. You're back early, she said, smiling but not looking up. I wanted to make sure the dress was ready. She turned and brushed a strand of silver-streaked hair away from her face. She had matured elegantly and gracefully, the type of woman who could command attention in a room without using her voice. Is it perfect? She asked. It's perfect. I observed her intently for any signs of guilt or hesitancy. There was none. She crossed the room to kiss my cheek. Her lips were warm, familiar. We made it, Jonathan, she replied softly. 28 years. It's been 28 years. I understand, I answered. She returned to the place cards. I've added Dr. Callahan to the guest list. He has done so much for us this year. Of course he did. That's thoughtful, I responded evenly. She looked at me, tilting her head slightly. Do you feel okay? The question would have once been caring. Now it sounded diagnostic. I'm fine, I replied. You seem distracted this morning. Just thinking about tomorrow. She nodded in satisfaction. I walked upstairs to my office and closed the door. 28 years of trust. The words rang through my thoughts. We met in Chicago in 1996. I was 30, working 2 jobs and trying to start a software consulting firm out of my apartment. She worked in marketing for a regional corporation. We met at a dinner party hosted by a mutual acquaintance. She chuckled at something I said about floppy disks, and I realized I had never wanted to impress someone so much. We married 18 months later at a modest church. There was no orchestra or catered event, only folding seats and borrowed flowers. Carter Holdings was developed by us all together. She managed client relationships. I developed infrastructure. We survived the dot-com crash. We refinanced our home amid the recession. We paid for both of our children's college education without taking out loans. When our daughter fractured her arm at the age of 9, Victoria slept in a hospital chair for 3 nights. When my father died, She held me while I sobbed in the kitchen like a child. There had been conflicts. Of course, they had. Money, parenthood, my long hours, and her displeasure with my stubbornness. However, betrayal had never entered the equation. 7 months ago, during a quarterly board meeting, I paused in the middle of a sentence to review projections. The digits became blurry for a brief moment. My head felt lighter. I ended my presentation. Later that evening, I informed Victoria that I had felt dizzy. She insisted on taking me to the emergency room. The doctors discovered nothing suspicious. Stressed, they said. But Victoria persisted. She booked an appointment with Dr. Andrew Callahan. He's one of the best neurologists in the state, she had claimed. It's just precaution. Precautions led to cognitive exams, memory recall tests, and brain scans. You forgot where you put your phone last week, she kindly reminded me. You called our neighbor by the wrong name. I'd laughed it off. Replaying it, the pattern appeared to be different. The story had been developing slowly. Jonathan is slipping. Jonathan requires oversight. Jonathan should consider delegating responsibility. I opened my laptop and started going over the last 7 months of company records. Grant Holloway was introduced at a charity gala 10 months ago. 41, refined, Ivy League. He focused on legacy planning and asset restructuring for elderly founders. He had complimented me. Mr. Reeves, you've built something spectacular. It deserves to outlive you. Outlive me. He had progressively pushed himself into financial discussions, proposed tax-efficient offshore ownership arrangements, and advocated trust revisions. Victoria had endorsed every suggestion. You don't want to burden the kids, she had explained. Simplify things. My cursor was hovering over Grant's trust amendment draft email from last month. At the time, I only skimmed it, now I'm reading every line. There was a clause in the text that allowed for the temporary transfer of operational authority in the event of documented cognitive impairment. And who would document the impairment? Dr. Callahan. My stomach constricted. A faint knock stopped my thoughts. Victoria entered the office without waiting for permission. You've been in here a while, she remarked lightly. Is everything okay? I gently turned in my chair. Just going over some numbers. She walked behind me and put her hands on my shoulders. You don't have to carry everything alone anymore, she told me. You've done enough. The tone was comforting, reassuring, and abruptly suffocating. I'm not dead yet, I said, attempting a smile. She laughed, but it was half a second too late. Of course you're not, she replied, don't be dramatic. Dramatic? Was I or was I now seeing clearly? She squeezed my shoulders once more before exiting the room. When the door snapped shut, I slowly exhaled. I replayed the boutique chat in my head. After tomorrow night, everything will transfer, he won't even know what he's signing. The assisted living arrangement. A life delicately maneuvered into a corner. Not via violence. Through paperwork. Through concern. Through love. I unlocked my desk drawer and took out a little leather notepad that I hadn't touched in years. On the first page, I wrote, what do they think I can't see? I listed people below that, Andrew Callahan, Grant Holloway, trust amendment, cognitive review, offshore restructuring. I then wrote something else. Find proof. Because instinct wasn't sufficient, emotion was not enough. If I wanted to survive what was ahead, I needed proof. 28 years of trust had shaped my life. Tomorrow night, however, that trust would be put to the test. And if Victoria thought I was fading, she was about to learn how mistaken she was. The morning after the boutique, I did something I never expected to do in my own marriage. I hired someone to follow my wife. The decision came without drama, pacing, or whiskey at dawn, it was simply clarity. If Victoria was constructing a case to erase me, I would create one to defend myself. I drove 2 towns over to an office park that resembled every other office park in America. Low brick buildings, trimmed hedges, and a flagpole creaking in the wind. The name on the directory was Michael Donovan, Investigative Services. Michael had been with the FBI for 19 years before retiring early. We met once at a charity event. He struck me as the type of man who looks for exits before sitting down. When I entered his office, he stood to shake my hand. Mid-60s, silver crew cut, eyes that assess before acting. Mr. Reeves, he stated, didn't expect to see you here. I didn't expect to be here, I explained. He waited. I need discretion, I explained, and speed. He closed the blinds before I could finish the next sentence. I told him everything. The dressing room, the voices, the terms, cognitive review, power of attorney, and assisted living. He did not interrupt. After I finished, he leaned back slowly. Have you got proof? He asked. Not yet. Then we gather it. He explained the process calmly and methodically. Phone metadata, financial tracing, surveillance, background checks. People who plan something as structured as this leave trails. He claimed they always believe they are cleaner than they are. Can you move fast? How quickly do you need it? The anniversary party is tomorrow night. His brow rose slightly. Then we start now. By the afternoon, Michael had assigned 2 associates. One focused on Victoria's communication. The other began looking into corporate filings related to Grant Holloway. I returned home and continued to behave exactly as I had for the previous 28 years. I asked about the caterer. I tried wine. I confirmed the seating chart. However, something sharp had replaced the easy rhythm of married life. That evening, Victoria suggested we go over a few documents before things get hectic tomorrow. We sat at the kitchen island in the warm glow of the pendant lights. She slid a thin folder towards me. "It's just housekeeping," she explained. "Grant thinks we should streamline authority structures in case something ever happens." I opened it slowly. Power of attorney amendment. Transfer of operational authority. Contingent cognitive certification. The language was dense, but the outcome was simple. If Dr. Callahan documented cognitive impairment, even temporary, Victoria would gain immediate control of all company operations and discretionary financial authority. My name would remain on paper. My influence would not. "You've been under so much stress," she continued gently. "This protects you." "Protects? That's thoughtful," I responded evenly. "I know it's hard for you to talk about aging," she added, "but we have to be realistic." "Realistic?" I signed nothing. "I'd like to have my attorney glance at this," I said. A flicker crossed her face. "Small. Quick." "Of course," she replied too quickly. "I just thought it would be easier before the party." Easier for whom? That night, I lay beside her in bed, listening to the steady rhythm of her breathing. 28 years of shared sleep, and I had never felt more alone. By noon the next day, Michael called. "I have something," he said. I stepped outside to take the call. "Grant Holloway formed an LLC 4 months ago," Michael continued. "Silverpoint Capital. That means nothing by itself. It does when your trust amendment references Silverpoint as a restructuring vehicle." Silence stretched between us. "Who's listed as managing partner?" I asked. "Victoria Reeves and Grant Holloway." The lake shimmered in front of me. Children rode bikes on the sidewalk across the street. Normal life continued. "What else?" "Dr. Callahan received a consulting fee from Silverpoint 3 weeks ago. $62,000. The air left my lungs slowly. "Consulting for what?" Michael paused. "Medical documentation services." There it was. The price of my impairment. "I need everything in writing," I said. "You'll have it." "And Michael?" "Yes, sir." "Dig deeper into Holloway." He was quiet for a moment. "I already am." By 3:40, Michael emailed a preliminary report. Grant Holloway had previously worked for a financial advisory firm investigated for securities irregularities. No charges had stuck, but the pattern was there. Aggressive asset reallocation. Offshore movement. Client opacity. Silverpoint had an account in the Cayman Islands, 2 authorized signatories, Victoria Reeves and Grant Holloway. I printed the documents and locked them in my desk. Then I went downstairs to help arrange flowers. Guests would begin arriving in less than 20 hours. Victoria stood in the living room directing a rental crew. She looked radiant, confident, calm. I studied her from across the room. Was this fear, greed, desperation, or something else entirely? She caught me watching. "What?" she asked lightly. "Just thinking how lucky I am," I replied. She smiled. "If you keep saying that, people will think you're sentimental in your old age." "Old age?" I smiled back. If she thought I was fading, she was about to witness the most focused version of me she'd ever seen. That evening, Michael sent a final update prior to the party. "We have documentation for asset transfers scheduled for 9:18 p.m. tomorrow night," he said on the phone. "That's during the toast," I explained quietly. "Yes. Electronic authorization. You only need to physically sign the trust amendment. The rest happens automatically. Once I'm declared impaired." "Yes. What if I refuse?" "Then they'll attempt to frame refusal as proof of instability." Its elegance was almost impressive. "Will you be there tomorrow?" I asked. "In the crowd," Michael answered. "With everything." I hung up and stood alone in my office. On the desk were photographs from the previous 28 years. Our wedding day. The birth of our children. Family vacations. Company holiday parties. Had she planned this for months? Or had it slowly grown out of fear? Fear of losing control, of aging, or of being vulnerable? I did not know. But I knew one thing for certain. Tomorrow night would not go as planned. If she intended to quietly erase me, I'd bring the truth to light. The morning of the anniversary party was bright and deceptively peaceful. Sunlight poured across the lake, transforming the water into fractured glass. The house was filled with the aroma of freshly cut hydrangeas and catered hors d'oeuvres warming in stainless steel trays. From the outside, nothing suggested a collapse. Inside, I'd never felt more alert. Victoria was already dressed in a silk robe when I arrived downstairs. Her hair was loosely pinned, her makeup was half done, and her anniversary gown hung in a garment bag near the staircase like a silent accomplice. "You're up early," she said, looking at me through the mirror in the hallway. "Couldn't sleep," I said. Nerves, maybe. She smiled. It's only a party, Jonathan. Just a party. I poured coffee and watched her move through the kitchen with the same effortless authority she had always exhibited. For 28 years, I admired that strength. I had relied on it. Now I'm studying it. At 8:50 a.m., my phone vibrated. Michael sent a single message. All documents have been secured. Electronic transfer is scheduled. 9:18 p.m. Dr. Callahan confirmed attendance. Holloway arrived in town last night. I deleted the message immediately. Is everything under control? Victoria asked casually. Always, I replied. By early afternoon, the backyard had been transformed. White linen tables extended across the lawn. Lanterns hang from the oak trees. A stage had been set up near the water for speeches. Staff moved swiftly between the house and the bar tent. Our daughter Natalie arrived first. She stepped out of her rental car and ran toward Victoria, arms wide open. 28 years, she said, laughing. You two are indestructible. Indestructible. I hugged her tight. She smelled just like the lavender shampoo she used in college. You look tired, Dad, she said quietly, as Victoria turned away. A big week, are you sure you are okay? I met her eyes. I'm fine. I would not put our children under suspicion without proof. Not yet. By 3:40, guests started arriving in waves. Carter Holdings employees, longtime neighbors, church friends, and investors, each handshake seemed surreal. It's been 28 years, Jonathan. That's unusual these days. You have created something remarkable. Your marriage is an example. Example? Victoria moved through the crowd like an experienced diplomat. Her laughter came out naturally. If guilt existed, it had no visible mask. Dr. Andrew Callahan arrived at 5:30 p.m. He approached with measured warmth. Jonathan, he said, gripping my hand tightly. You look strong. Feeling stronger every day, I said evenly. He held my gaze for too long. Good, he said. That's good. Grant Holloway followed soon after. Navy suit, polished smile, and perfectly poised. Mr. Reeves, he said calmly, what a milestone. Indeed. I said. His gaze shifted briefly to Victoria across the lawn. They exchanged a subtle yet effective look. Michael stood near the bar tent, blending in with the other guests talking about golf. He made no signal. None was required. Everything was in place. As dusk fell, the string quartet began playing softly. Candles flickered on the lawn. The mood became more warm and reflective. Dinner ended. Around 8:20 p.m. At 8:35, Victoria squeezed my hand. Time for your speech, she said quietly. My speech. I stood slowly, and walked onto the small stage near the lake. I adjusted the microphone, and it hummed faintly. 180 people turned toward me. For a moment, I saw only decades. Birthdays, a business is launched, vacations, arguments were resolved in quiet kitchens. I cleared my throat. 28 years ago, I said. Victoria and I stood in a small church with folding chairs and borrowed flowers. Light laughter echoed throughout the crowd. We didn't know what we were building. A company, a family, a life. I looked at Victoria. She smiled, and her eyes shone. For 28 years, I believed in one thing above all else. I paused deliberately. Trust. The word remained in the air. Trust enables two people to create something larger than themselves. It's what enables a business to expand. A family can thrive. Guests nodded. But trust requires clarity. Victoria smiled almost imperceptibly. And tonight, before we raise our glasses, there are a few documents I'd like to clarify. A murmur spread throughout the crowd. I stepped down from the stage and pointed to the large screen, which had been set up for a slideshow of family photographs. Michael, I replied casually. The screen flashed to life. Rather than wedding photos, a scanned document appeared. Silver Point Capital. Articles of formation. Several guests leaned forward. 4 months ago, I replied evenly, my wife and our financial advisor formed a new holding company, Silver Point. Grant shifted slightly in his seat. Victoria's hand tightened around her champagne glass. This company was structured to receive control of Carter Holdings upon the documentation of my cognitive impairment. Gasps erupted across the lawn. Victoria rose abruptly. Jonathan, this is inappropriate. I raised my hand gently. Let me finish. Another document has appeared. Consulting fees. Dr. Andrew Callahan. $62,000. The crowd fell silent. A payment, I explained, for medical documentation services. Dr. Callahan's face was drained of color. You're misrepresenting, he began. I am presenting records, I explained calmly. The next slide showed email correspondence between Grant and Victoria about the timing of the electronic transfer, which was scheduled for 9:18 p.m. The timestamp glowed on the screen. 9:18 p.m. It was 9:13. I looked directly at Victoria. Could you please explain why control of my company is scheduled to transfer in 5 minutes? Her lips parted, but no words emerged. Grant stepped forwards. This is standard estate planning, he remarked sharply. You're confused. Am I? I asked quietly. The final slide appeared. The assisted living pre-admission form. My name is neatly typed at the top. Silence engulfed the lawn. Natalie covered her mouth. Our son Ryan stood motionless beside the oak tree. Victoria's voice broke. You were forgetting things, she exclaimed desperately. You scared me. What scared you so much that you erased me? I asked. The clock on the screen showed 9:17. I removed a folded document from my jacket. This, I explained, holding it up, is a temporary injunction filed this afternoon. The transfer has been frozen. Signed 11 Place Potty, M. Nothing occurred. Grant glanced at his phone. His composure snapped. Dr. Callahan stepped backward. Victoria looked at me, not angry, but rather shocked. You hired someone, she whispered. Yes, I answered. For the first time that evening, my voice trembled. Not from weakness, but from the weight of 28 years collapsing all at once. You told them I wouldn't see it coming. I let the silence stretch. But I did. The string quartet had stopped playing. The lake behind us remained perfectly still. I won't sign anything tonight, I said quietly, and I won't be placed anywhere against my will. I turned back to face the crowd. I'm sorry you had to witness this, but clarity matters. Then I stepped off the stage. Victoria remained motionless in her navy gown, surrounded by 180 stunned guests, 28 years of image shattered in less than 8 minutes. And, for the first time in months, I felt fully awake. Nobody moved for a few seconds after I stepped off stage. The only sound was the soft lapping of water on the dock. Then the murmurs started. Low at first, disbelieving, chairs scraping against stone, glasses clinking as people moved around. Victoria stood motionless beneath the lantern light, her navy gown shimmered softly in the breeze. And for a strange, disorienting moment, she resembled the woman I had married, poised, elegant, and unwavering. However, her eyes were different, not soft, not consistent. Calculating. Jonathan, she said gently, her voice controlled, you've misunderstood what this was. Have I? I asked quietly. Grant was the first to step forward. He recovered more quickly than she did. This is a private family matter, he explained to the audience. There's no reason to escalate it in front of everyone. Escalate? I repeated calmly. You scheduled an asset transfer for 9:18 p.m. Several guests checked their watches instinctively. Grant's jaws tightened. You're proving our concerns right now. The tactic was almost admirable. Reframe me as unstable, impulsive, and paranoid. Dr. Andrew Callahan cleared his throat and approached with professional sympathy. Jonathan, cognitive stress can distort perception, he explained gently. We only recommended precautionary planning. Did you also recommend a pre-admission assisted living agreement? I asked. The guests let out gasps once more. Dr. Callahan's composure snapped. That document was exploratory. It was signed, I explained, by you. Once again, there is silence. Natalie approached her mother. Is this true, Mom? She asked, her voice trembling. Victoria's gaze shifted to her daughter. I was trying to protect him, she explained. You have all seen it, the tendency to forget things. The distraction. Ryan stepped forward now. Dad still runs the company, he remarked sharply. He closed a $14.5 million deal last month. Grant interjected quickly. High-functioning impairment is common. Enough, I stated firmly. I returned to the stage and picked up the microphone again, not for amplification, but to force stillness. I am not impaired, I replied evenly. But even if I were, that decision would not belong to a secret LLC. My gaze swept across the crowd slowly. I started Carter Holdings with a folding table in our first apartment. Victoria was with me every step of the way. I paused. That's why this hurts. The vulnerability in my voice altered the atmosphere. This was not rage. It wasn't a spectacle. It was a clear case of betrayal. Victoria's shoulders sagged slightly. You were slipping, she said quietly. You forgot Natalie's birthday dinner. I mixed up the date, I explained. By 1 day. You left the stove on. For 4 minutes. You scared me, she exclaimed louder now. You scared me because I saw my father slip into dementia. I watched my mother lose everything, because he didn't plan. The crowd moved again. There it was. Fear is raw and unfiltered. For a brief moment, the anger within me wavered. I would have planned with you, I replied softly. You didn't need to ambush me. Grant stepped in again, his voice sharper now. Let us be practical. Even if you cancel tonight's transfer, this persists. The board is concerned. I smiled faintly. I met with the board this afternoon. His expression altered. I presented them with documentation of Silverpoint and your Cayman accounts. A ripple of whispers spread among the investors in attendance. You Grant started. They voted unanimously to suspend any restructuring tied to your firm, I told them, effective immediately. His confidence had finally crumbled. You had no right. I had every right, I explained calmly. It's my company. Dr. Callahan attempted one final recovery. This is emotionally charged. Maybe we should meet privately. We will, I said, with attorneys. Victoria looked at me then, not as an adversary or a co-conspirator, but as someone who had erred. I never meant to humiliate you, she said quietly. You humiliated me the moment you said I wouldn't see it coming. Her eyes glistened. Jonathan, for a split second, I saw the young woman from that church in 1996, the one who believed in collaboration, struggle, and building something together. Then I remembered the dressing room. After tomorrow night, everything transfers. I lowered the microphone. I'm not pressing charges tonight, I said quietly, but this ends now. I turned to face Michael, who nodded once from the crowd's edge. Copies of all documentation have been filed with legal counsel, I subsequently stated. Any further attempt to declare me impaired without independent evaluation will be considered fraud. The word had a strong impact. Fraud. Victoria closed her eyes. Guests began quietly gathering their belongings. The conversation splintered into quiet speculation. The anniversary cake remained untouched on its silver stand. 28 years are represented by white frosting and navy ribbon. Natalie approached me slowly. Dad, she asked, her voice shaking, why didn't you tell us? I needed proof, I replied. Ryan stood next to her, his jaw tight. You're not going anywhere, he stated firmly. No, I responded. Grant was already pacing across the lawn, looking at his phone. Dr. Callahan slipped away quietly. Victoria remained where she stood. The lanterns flickered above her, casting shifting shadows on her face. I approached her slowly. We stood close enough to feel each other's breaths. Why didn't you talk to me? I asked. Her voice was now small. Because you would have said no. Yes, I answered. And I was afraid of what? She went on. Of losing control. There it was again, control. Not love, not safety, control. The string quartet members packed their instruments silently. Caterers cleared plates. The lake reflected the moon in fractured pieces. I won't sign anything, I said gently. And I won't disappear quietly. She nodded faintly. I know, she whispered. I stepped back. I loved you enough to trust you, I added. You should have loved me enough to speak to me. The distance between us felt wider than the lake. 28 years ended. Not with shouting, but with understanding, and sometimes that's worse. The guests left in fragments. Clusters of whispered conversations drifted toward the driveway. Car doors shut softly, as if the night itself required gentleness. No one raised their voice. No one lingered for cake. The lawn that had been dressed for celebration now looked like the aftermath of a quiet storm. Lanterns still swayed above empty chairs. The anniversary banner fluttered against the oak tree, reading 28 years of love in gold script that felt almost ironic now. I stood near the water long after most of the guests had gone. Behind me, I could hear Victoria speaking in low tones to Natalie. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to see it to know that our children were asking questions that would not have easy answers. Michael approached quietly. Transfer blocked, he said under his breath. Bank confirmed the freeze. Good. Your legal counsel has the documentation. If they attempt anything further, you're covered. Thank you. He studied me carefully. You're holding up better than most would. I don't feel better, I said. He nodded once. That's normal. Normal. Nothing about the last 24 hours felt normal. When the last rental van pulled away and the staff finished clearing tables, the house felt cavernous. Natalie and Ryan remained. We gathered in the kitchen, the same room where Victoria and I had once debated paint colors and school districts and business loans. Now it was a tribunal. Mom, Natalie said carefully, did you really plan to move Dad into assisted living? Victoria sat at the island, still in her navy gown, makeup smudged faintly at the corners of her eyes. I was trying to protect him, she said again, but the conviction had drained from her voice. From what? Ryan asked sharply. From himself? Victoria turned toward him. You didn't see what I saw. The tendency to forget things. The distraction. I saw stress, I said quietly. She looked at me then, not defensive, just tired. You didn't watch your father deteriorate, she said softly. You didn't hold his hand while he forgot your name. There it was again. Fear masquerading as foresight. And so you decided to skip the conversation entirely? I asked. If I asked you, you would have refused. Because I am not impaired. She inhaled sharply. Maybe not yet. The words landed harder than anything else she'd said that night. Ryan shook his head in disbelief. This isn't about medical fear, he said. It's about control. Silence followed. Victoria didn't deny it. Natalie's voice trembled. Mom, were you and Grant? No, Victoria said quickly. Too quickly. Michael had warned me about that reaction. There's documentation of financial entanglement, I said calmly, and consulting fees. Her jaw tightened. Grant offered solutions, she replied. You were resistant to change. You wouldn't modernize the company, so you modernized me instead. Natalie covered her mouth again. The cruelty of it was not in violence, It was in process, paperwork clauses. Gradual displacement. I never meant to hurt you, Victoria whispered. But you did. Ryan stepped forward, his voice firm. Dad's getting a full independent evaluation, from someone not on Silverpoint's payroll. I agree, I replied immediately. Victoria flinched slightly. I'm not afraid of transparency, I added, are you? Her silence answered. The next morning, the house felt hollow. Natalie and Ryan had left before sunrise, both promising to return within the week. Victoria and I sat at opposite ends of the breakfast table. No music played. No place cards waited to be arranged. Where do we go from here? She asked finally. Attorneys, I said. Her eyes closed briefly. I was trying to prepare for the inevitable. The inevitable? You aging? I am aging, I said calmly. So are you. She gave a humorless smile. I thought I could manage it. Manage it, not walk through it together. Manage it. I will not be managed, I said quietly. She nodded. I see that now. Do you? I wondered. By noon, my attorney arrived. By 3, divorce paperwork had been drafted, not filed, but prepared. Not out of vengeance, out of protection. Michael's team continued tracing Silverpoint's transactions. Preliminary findings suggested more aggressive financial structuring than Victoria likely understood. Grant's prior firm was already under quiet review by regulators. Dr. Callahan, when confronted with documentation, requested counsel immediately. The collapse was not explosive. It was structural, a slow dismantling of carefully arranged deception. That evening, Victoria packed a suitcase, not dramatically, not angrily, methodically. I'll stay at Natalie's for a while, she said. I watched her move through the bedroom we had shared for 28 years. Each folded garment felt like a closing chapter. Were you going to tell me? I asked quietly. She paused. I thought you'd thank me one day. For erasing me? For protecting the legacy? Our legacy was built on partnership, I said, not containment. She zipped the suitcase. At the doorway, she hesitated. I loved you, she said. Did you? Her eyes filled. I still do. I didn't respond. Love that bypasses consent is not love. It is strategy. She left just after sunset. The lake reflected orange light as her car disappeared down the driveway. I stood alone in the silence that followed. 28 years of shared decisions reduced to a series of legal conversations. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt something quieter. Awake. The collapse had not destroyed me. It had revealed the fault lines I had ignored. And sometimes revelation is the only way forward. A year has a way of rearranging everything, not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly through paperwork, through empty spaces at the dinner table, through mornings when you wake up and reach across the bed only to find cool sheets. It has been 11 months since the anniversary night. 11 months since lanterns flickered over a celebration that became an exposure. The lake is still here. The house is still standing. Carter Holdings is still operating. But nothing is the same. The independent neurological evaluation came back 18 days after Victoria moved out, comprehensive, unbiased, administered by a specialist with no financial entanglements. The results were clear. No cognitive impairment. No early dementia. Mild stress-related fatigue. Normal aging. When I read the report, I didn't feel victorious. I felt relieved, and oddly saddened, because it meant this had never been about my mind. It had been about fear and control. The divorce finalized 7 months after the party. There were no screaming courtroom scenes, no dramatic accusations, just attorneys, mediators, and signatures. Victoria did not contest the documentation once Michael's findings were formally presented. Silverpoint Capital dissolved under regulatory scrutiny. Grant Holloway quietly relocated out of state after his advisory license was suspended pending investigation. Dr. Andrew Callahan resigned from his hospital board position and settled a malpractice complaint without admitting fault. Consequences, like truth, tend to surface eventually. Victoria and I divided assets fairly. I insisted on that. I refused to let the ending turn vindictive. 28 years deserved at least that much dignity. Natalie and Ryan visit often now. At first, their conversations were cautious. They tiptoed around the topic of their mother, around the word betrayal, around the concept of aging. But time softens edges. One evening last fall, Ryan stood by the lake with me as the sun dipped below the water. You scared me that night, he admitted, because of the speech. Because I realized how quickly things can shift. I thought you two were unbreakable. So did I. He nodded. I'm glad you didn't just explode, you handled it. Handled it? I've thought about that word often. I didn't handle it because I'm strong. I handled it because panic would have completed their narrative. If I had rage, they would have labeled it instability. If I had wept publicly, they would have cited emotional fragility. Calm was my only defense. Natalie asked me recently if I would ever forgive her mother. I don't know, I told her honestly. Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting. Victoria wrote to me once, a handwritten letter. No legal language, no strategy. She admitted she had been terrified, watching her father decline years ago. She admitted she began interpreting every small mistake I made as confirmation of history repeating itself. I thought if I moved first, I could control the outcome, she wrote. Control. The word returns like a refrain. She ended the letter with a line that stayed with me. I forgot that partnership requires conversation, not management. I have not responded, not because I hate her, not because I want her to suffer, but because I am still understanding what remains. What remains is this: I am not diminished, I am not fragile, I am not something to be quietly transitioned into irrelevance. Aging does not mean surrendering autonomy, love does not mean forfeiting agency. And fear, no matter how well-intentioned, does not justify deception. There are evenings now when I sit on the dock alone with a glass of wine. The house behind me is quieter. The routines are simpler. I cook smaller meals. I leave lights off in rooms no one uses. But I also breathe differently, more deliberately. There is clarity in knowing you were nearly erased and that you stepped back into your own outline before it happened. I sometimes replay the dressing room moment in my mind. He won't see it coming. I almost didn't. That realization humbles me. Trust is a beautiful thing, but blind trust can become a vulnerability. If there is one lesson I carry forward, it is this: partnership requires transparency, silence breeds assumptions, assumptions breed control. And control, left unchecked, can masquerade as care. I don't know what Victoria's future looks like. I don't know whether time will reshape our relationship into something gentler. Friendship, perhaps, or at least civility. What I know is that the illusion we built could not survive secrecy. And sometimes losing an illusion saves your life. If you're listening to this and you've ever felt quietly sidelined, quietly managed, quietly dismissed, I want you to pause. Ask questions, seek clarity. Calm is not weakness. Documentation is not paranoia. And advocating for yourself is not selfish. I would never have chosen to end 28 years this way, but I would choose every time to remain present in my own life. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever faced a moment where trust cracked and you had to decide who you really were, I want to know. Leave a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Tell me what you would have done. Tell me whether you believe fear can justify control. We share stories like this every day, not to create division, but to create awareness. So, if you want to continue this journey with me, subscribe. Stay with us. There are more conversations ahead, more truths to uncover, more quiet awakenings to explore. Because none of us should fade quietly into someone else's plan. Not at 30, not at 60, not ever.
3 weeks before labor, I found my SIL planned for 7 months to trap my husband with her friend, waiting until I was too fat to fight back. My sister-in-law is my husband's half-sister, as a result of their mother's adultery. When his dad, whose name is Henrik, was 13, he split from their mother when a DNA test revealed she was not his child. Henrik refused to deal with my sister-in-law, but remained close to my husband. As a result, my sister-in-law feels extremely dependent on my husband. My husband is also very protective of his sister and would not tolerate anything nasty being spoken about her, despite the fact that she can be extremely unruly and erratic at times, even crying during our engagement party because she did not receive any gifts. Anyway, my husband and I purchased a property last year that includes its own indoor swimming pool. My sister-in-law was overjoyed when she saw it and requested if she may use it occasionally with a friend. We agreed that was fine as long as she gave us warning before showing up. She and her buddy Sophia have used it numerous times previously, but virtually never when my husband is home. With CVID resurfacing, my husband has begun to work from home on occasion. My sister-in-law asked if she and Sophia may come over to use the pool. I told her I didn't want them to come over because I was pregnant, but my sister-in-law asked if they could come over provided she and Sophia were isolated for 3 weeks, and my husband agreed it was fine. 3 weeks later, they came to my residence. My husband was in his office, so they headed directly to the pool after making small conversation. My husband eventually came out after an hour, and we were hanging out in the kitchen. My sister-in-law stepped in to get a drink and began talking to my husband. Before returning to the pool, she stated, "Sophia's going to be overjoyed to see you." This was unusual because my husband and Sophia are not close. Sophia entered the kitchen 4 minutes later, dripping wet with a towel that didn't cover much, and spent the rest of her time talking to my husband until he excused himself to return to work. When she spoke to him, she was really happy and smiling. He'd say something snarky, and she'd laugh as if it were the best joke she'd ever heard. It seemed like she was flirting with him. Before she returned to the pool, she gave me this strange, smirky expression. Before leaving, they questioned my husband if he worked from home every day of the week. He affirmed that he was. For the next 3 weeks, they came over to the house every day to swim. Except Sophia never got into the water. Instead, she hung out at home in her bikini every day. When my husband came out to hang out with me, she would swiftly stop him and keep him chatting until he had to return to work. I prepared lunch for everyone, and when I excused myself to call my husband down, my sister-in-law interrupted me and said Sophia could do it for me. They exchanged a glance. And Sophia appeared overjoyed as she went to get him. Sophia's relationship with my husband had also become more physical. She placed her hands on his chest and arms, standing or sitting very close to him. To my husband's credit, he usually made room between them when she did something like this. I assume my sister-in-law is involved since she has recently made several pregnancy-related barbs at me. She told me a story about how one of her friend's boyfriends was cheating on her and then said something like, "Did you know a lot of men start cheating when their wives are pregnant?" She's also commented on how I look chubby now, which looks strange next to my husband because he's well built. If she saw my husband outside the office, she immediately hurried to alert Sophia. I spotted it yesterday when Sophia followed my husband into his office. I was in the hallway when I noticed her slipping in behind him and carefully closing the door. My heart began to race as I approached the door. I could hear her giggling through the thin walls. She had been making the same phony, high-pitched sound all week. My husband asked her to leave in a forceful but polite tone, explaining that he had a conference call. She did not depart immediately. I heard her remark something about how hard he worked and how he deserved to be rewarded. My husband went out hastily, his mouth hard. Sophia followed, adjusting her bikini top and giving me another of those smirks as she passed. That evening, after they had left, I tried to talk to my husband about it. He sat at the kitchen counter, browsing through emails on his lap. I put my hand on my expanding belly and took a deep breath. He looked up when I recounted Sophia's actions. His expression suddenly turned defensive. He said I was reading too much into it. That Sophia was only friendly. When I pointed out the touching and continual interruptions, he shrugged and stated he'd dealt with it by creating distance. He reminded me that Isabel had been through a lot with Henrik's rejection, and these pool visits were very important to her. The conversation concluded with him returning to his emails while I remained there, feeling more alone than before. The next morning, Isabel texted me to see if they might arrive earlier than normal. She explained that Sophia had a hair appointment later and wanted to catch some sun first. I was still in my jammies and hadn't had breakfast yet, but I said yes because saying no would just result in more turmoil. They arrived within 22 minutes. Isabel immediately commented on my looks, mentioning how weary I was, and recommended I try some under-eye cream she had been using. Sophia was already wearing her bikini, a red string number that left nothing to the imagination. My husband emerged from his office about 11 a.m. to get some coffee. Sophia virtually raced out of the pool area, water droplets gleaming on her skin. She placed herself between my husband and the coffee machine, reaching up to collect mugs from the top shelf. Her body brushed against his for a time, then he took a step back. She offered him a mug with a wink and asked if he could help her with her phone, which was not connecting to our Wi-Fi. He claimed he'd look at it later, but she insisted, caressing his forearm and claiming it would just be a second. Isabel arrived in the doorway, observing the scene with a strange smile. I resolved to make myself useful and began making food. Isabel sat at the kitchen island while I chopped fruit and began telling another story about relationships. This time, it was about a co-worker whose husband left her for a younger woman shortly after their child was born. She underlined how the new girlfriend was slimmer and more fun, whereas the ex-husband stated that he felt confined by domesticity. Her gaze kept moving to Sophia, who was still hanging around my husband, giggling at something on her phone that she insisted on showing him. The sequence lasted for several days. Sophia's bikinis grew smaller, her touches lasted longer, and her interruptions became more purposeful. She began bringing up inside jokes from past visits, attempting to develop a connection with my husband while excluding me. One afternoon, she sat at his normal spot at the kitchen table, forcing him to sit next to her when he arrived for lunch. She leaned against him, rubbing her breast into his arm as she showed him something on her phone. He instantly rose up and stated that he needed to return to work. Isabel's comments became crueler. She mentioned how pregnancy permanently alters a woman's body, and how some males are unable to cope with the shift. She brought up statistics concerning divorce rates after children, always presenting them as casual conversation. When I challenged her about it, she appeared hurt, and explained that she was just trying to prepare me for reality. She accused me of being hormonal and neurotic, and that I was creating problems where none existed. I began capturing everything. Every touch, comment, and smirk. I photographed Sophia in her many barely there bikinis. I noted when she followed my husband. I recorded Isabel's harsh comments on my phone. My husband noticed me doing this one evening and inquired what I was doing. When I explained, he sighed deeply and claimed I was being obsessed. He argued Isabel would never purposefully injure me, and that I was misinterpreting her innocent conduct due to pregnant hormones. The breaking point occurred on a Thursday. I was 8.5 months pregnant and felt enormous and uncomfortable. Sophia arrived in what could barely be termed a bikini. Triangles of fabric held together by strings. She stopped pretending to swim and instead laid on a pool chair ideally positioned so my husband could see her through his office window. Around lunchtime she walked inside, ostensibly for water. I followed softly and found her outside his office door, altering her top to reveal more cleavage. She knocked and entered without waiting for an answer. I put my ear against the door. She was applauding his work ethic again, noting that any lady would be fortunate to have him. Her voice became lower and more intimate. I heard movement, followed by my husband's crisp, clear voice commanding her to stop. The door swung wide and he stormed out, his face flushed with rage. Sophia emerged behind him, her lipstick stained, and reached for his arm. He jerked away and ordered her to leave his house immediately. Isabel raced in from the pool area, demanding to know what had occurred. My husband explained that Sophia attempted to kiss him. Instead of being startled or sorry, Isabel turned on me. She accused me of poisoning my husband to harm them, as well as being jealous and domineering. She claimed I was threatened by younger, prettier women and was taking it out on poor Sophia. Sophia stood there with phony tears in her eyes, stating that my husband had misinterpreted her intentions. My husband's cheeks turned frigid. He told them both to go and not return. Isabel burst into tears, claiming he had chosen his neurotic wife over his own sister. She mentioned Henrik and how he had abandoned her, and now my husband was doing the same thing. It was emotional manipulation at its best. For a brief while, I noticed my husband waver. Then Sophia made an error. She muttered something about how I didn't deserve him and had trapped him with a baby. The hush that ensued was deafening. My husband's countenance changed from rage to awareness. He actually looked at Isabel and questioned whether this was intended. Isabel's weeping ceased abruptly. She raised her chin proudly, claiming that she was simply looking out for him and that he deserved better than an obese, anxious wife who would only become worse once the baby arrived. She stated Sophia understood him and could make him happy in ways I couldn't. My husband told them to go. His voice was low yet forceful. Isabel tried more tears and guilt over Henrik, but he refused to budge. As they retrieved their belongings, Sophia's phone fell from her bag. It landed face up, and the screen lit up with messages. Before she could take it, I noticed my name in the text preview. My husband took it up, and Sophia lunged for it, but he kept it and read the notes aloud. The texts revealed all. Isabel had been coaching Sophia for weeks, informing her exactly when my husband would be available, what to wear, and how to behave. There were messages about waiting until I was too pregnant to fight back, and about how men were most susceptible when their women were not attractive. The final message sent that morning read, "Today's the day, he won't be able to resist anymore." Sophia snatched her phone and dashed out. Isabel stood motionless, her strategy exposed. My husband asked her why, his voice cracking slightly. She laughed bitterly and claimed we had it all. The house, the pool, the baby on the way, and each other. She had nothing but a father who refused to acknowledge her and a sibling who tolerated her out of remorse. She wanted to hurt me in the same way she had been hurt. She wanted to destroy something lovely since she didn't have it. My husband urged her to go and not contact us again. She screamed that he would regret it and that families were supposed to keep together. He stated that families do not aim to damage each other's marriages. As she stormed out, she shrieked that if I became big and dull after the baby, he'd wish he'd listened to her. The door banged behind her, and the house became quiet. I collapsed into a kitchen chair, my hands trembling. The stress of the previous weeks washed over me in waves. My husband knelt alongside me and apologized over and over. He claimed he'd been blind, that his remorse for Isabel's circumstances had kept him from seeing who she truly was. He stated that dismissing my concerns was simpler than facing the truth about his sister. We hugged each other in the kitchen while I cried, letting go of weeks of stress and dread. That night, I began getting contractions. The stress had induced early labor. My husband took me to the hospital, holding my hand and promising a different outcome. While we waited for the doctor, he blocked Isabel's number on both of our phones. He also contacted Henrik for the first time in months, realizing why he had kept his distance from Isabel all these years. Henrik was not surprised by what had occurred, claiming Isabel had always been manipulative, even as a youngster. The doctor told us that the contractions were only Braxton Hicks caused by stress. She ordered bed rest and advised me to prevent any further emotional turmoil. My husband assisted me into the car, his hand never leaving mine. Throughout the trip home, he kept looking at me, his face furrowed with concern and shame. When we returned, the house felt different, emptier, but oddly safer without the constant danger of invasion. My husband called in sick the next morning at work. He cooked me breakfast in bed and sat next to me, finally ready to discuss what had transpired. He told me about growing up with the weight of Isabel's existence, and how Elena would cry and ask him to be nice to his sister since she didn't have anybody else. He stated how Henrik's utter rejection of Isabel made him feel responsible for her happiness, even when she broke rules. He'd spent years making excuses for her conduct, convincing himself that her neediness and manipulation were simply signs of desertion. His phone was buzzing while we were talking. Isabel was phoning from various numbers and leaving voicemails ranging from emotional apologies to vicious threats. She texted from applications we hadn't blocked yet, switching between claiming to be serious and threatening to ruin our life. My husband showed me each communication before deleting it, so there was no longer anything hidden from me. One especially vicious text stated that she had already informed Elena that I was abusing him, isolating him from his family. Another claimed she had images of him with Sophia that she had altered to appear compromising. Elena called that afternoon. My husband turned her on speaker so I could hear. She was enraged, accusing me of brainwashing her son against his sister, of being jealous and domineering. She claimed Isabel had told her everything. How I had banished her from our home. How I accused Sophia, an innocent person, of terrible things. How I used the baby to catch my husband. My husband quietly informed his mother the truth about the text messages and attempted kiss. Elena went quiet, then explained that Isabel was simply bewildered and that we were overreacting. She recommended that we all meet for supper to sort things out. My husband said, "No," and hung up. Stress was having an impact on my pregnancy. I couldn't keep anything down, and my blood pressure rose. My husband took me back to the doctor, who put me on modified bed rest and told me that if things didn't improve, they might have to induce labor early. The baby measured small, most likely due to my inability to eat adequately. I felt as if I was failing my child before she was born, all because of Isabel's sick games. My husband hired a security company to replace all of our locks and add cameras. He wasn't taking any chances after Isabel's mounting threats. The security specialist stated that in circumstances like these, family members frequently escalate when cut off. He suggested we document everything and consider getting a restraining order. My husband was uneasy with the idea of pursuing legal action against family members, but he agreed to maintain it as an option. Sophia came to our home 4 days after the confrontation. My husband was in the shower, so I responded via the security chain. She looked different, with no makeup and wearing regular clothing instead of a bikini. She asked if we could speak. Against my better judgment, I let her to stand on the porch as I listened through the partially open door. She said Isabel had also manipulated her. She guaranteed her that my husband was miserable and looking for an escape. She stated that Isabel had been feeding her information for months, showing her images of my husband and telling her stories about how he grumbled about me. Sophia took out her phone and showed me other messages that I hadn't seen. Isabel had conjured up a complex scenario in which my husband secretly loved Sophia but felt forced to stay with me because of the baby. She told Sophia that I was emotionally abusive, that I controlled his funds, and that he was unhappy. The text dated back 7 months, well before the pool visits began. This had been planned since before I became pregnant. Sophia claimed she felt bad when she learned it was all a lie, but I noted she never apologized for attempting to kiss my husband, or for parading about half naked in my home. My husband arrived downstairs, as Sophia was leaving. I told him what she had said. He was outraged that she had gone to our place, but he was also concerned about the timing. Isabel had been planning for 7 months while attending our family dinners, claiming to be delighted about the baby, hugging me, and calling me sister. The betrayal was deeper than we imagined. That night, unable to sleep, I browsed through our photo albums online. It was seen in image after photo. Isabel's phony grins, how she positioned herself close to my husband, and how she angled her body away from me. In our pregnancy announcement photo, she was gazing at him, not at the camera. At our housewarming celebration, she spent the entire time following him around. How had I been so blind? My husband discovered me crying over my laptop at 4 a.m. He gently closed it and helped me back into bed. He swore we'd make it through this together, that Isabel would never hurt us again. Even as he held me, I could feel tension in his body. He was grieving for the sister he believed he had, the relationship he worked so hard to keep despite all the red signs. The following week presented new obstacles. Isabel began showing up at my husband's workplace. Security would refuse her away, but she would remain outside the building for hours, crying and making a disturbance. His coworkers began asking questions. His employer approached him to see whether everything was well at home. The affiliation with her drama was tarnishing his professional reputation, which he had worked so hard to build. Then began the social media effort. Isabel set up several phony identities to remark on her images, spreading tales about violence and infidelity. She shared old images of herself and my husband, with remarks about how I ruined their love. She also made a phony profile pretending to be me, writing derogatory comments about her and then screenshotting them as proof of my cruelty. We reported each account, but new ones appeared faster than they could be erased. Elena began calling relatives to share Isabel's version of events. His aunt called to lecture him on family loyalty. Adrian, his cousin, texted to express his disappointment with my husband's treatment of his sister. Isabel's family, which had scarcely acknowledged her existence for years, suddenly banded together to condemn us. My husband spent hours on the phone explaining the reality, but Isabel had spoken her narrative first, and people believed whatever they chose to believe. The tension was taking its toll on our marriage. My husband became withdrawn, working longer hours to avoid dealing with the situation. When he was at home, he was always on his phone, either erasing Isabel's messages or bickering with family. I felt like I was losing him to the turmoil we'd sought to avoid. One night, I discovered him standing in the nursery, which we had just started decorating, looking disoriented. He stated that he was afraid. I was scared Isabel would never stop. We were terrified that our daughter would grow up in such a poisonous environment. Fearful that he had failed as a brother and would fail as a father. I was 9 months pregnant when Isabel escalated again. She began dating someone new and invited him to stalk us. They'd sit in a car outside our house and watch. When my husband challenged them, the boyfriend said he was unaware of any restraining order. We hadn't filed one yet, and Isabel informed him that I was keeping her niece hostage. The police were contacted, but because they weren't officially on our property, they couldn't do much more than ask them to leave. My doctor became increasingly concerned about my health. The baby wasn't gaining enough weight, and my blood pressure remained dangerously high. She suggested inducing labor at 38 weeks if things did not improve. The prospect of involving my baby in this pandemonium horrified me. When I considered Isabel maybe attempting to harm our child in retaliation for us, I began getting panic attacks and finding it difficult to breathe. My husband eventually broke down and called Henrik. They hadn't spoken since the night in the hospital, but he needed advice from someone who understood Isabel's destructive nature. Henrik listened intently as my husband described what had transpired. Henrik groaned as he concluded, saying he had thought Isabel would change as she grew older, but some people are simply born broken. He volunteered to assist pay for a lawyer if we needed one, which was the first time he accepted responsibility for the problem. My husband appeared to change after his chat with Henrik. He returned home with a determination I had not seen in weeks. He had scheduled an appointment with a family lawyer to examine our alternatives. He had also arranged for us to spend a few days with Henrik to get away from the house and the constant surveillance. Most crucially, he had written Isabel a letter, not to transmit, but to process his own emotions. He read the letter to me. In it, he informed Isabel about all the times he'd defended her, all the relationships he'd ruined to protect her feelings, and all the sorrow he felt for Henrik's rejection of her. He talked about how he wanted to be the brother she needed, and how he ignored every warning flag because he believed love meant accepting someone unconditionally. He described how her activities had almost cost him his marriage and possibly his child's health. The letter concluded with him forgiving her, but he acknowledged that forgiveness did not imply allowing her back into our lives. We spent 4 days at Henrik's home. It felt strange at first. Henrik had never been warm, and the place resembled a museum. They did, however, gradually begin to communicate. Henrik told anecdotes of Isabel's early years, the lies she uttered as a youngster, and how she forced Elena into affairs by inciting conflict between her parents. He revealed that the affair that produced Isabel was not the first, but rather the first to result in pregnancy. Isabel's biological father had refused to see her, which Henrik thought had harmed something basic in her psyche. While we were away, Isabel broke into our home. The security cameras captured everything. She utilized a key we had no idea she possessed, most likely copied during one of her pool excursions. She went through our bedroom, closets, and nursery. She photographed everything, including personal documents. She spray-painted baby killer on the nursery wall and placed a doll with its head removed in the cot we had just put together. She remained in the residence for less than 11 minutes. However, the breach felt huge. The police finally took it seriously. Breaking and entering, damage, and the implied threat of the headless doll were all grounds for criminal charges. They apprehended Isabel at her apartment, where they discovered evidence of her obsession. Hundreds of images of my husband, printed screenshots of our social media accounts, and notebooks full of plots to split us up. She'd been recording our patterns, noting when we were at home, when we went to the doctor, and when we were vulnerable. My husband needed to see the evidence as part of the legal proceedings. He returned home horrified, unable to accept that the sister he had protected for so long was capable of such intentional brutality. The diaries revealed that she had been planning variants on this strategy for years, waiting for the opportune moment. Our pregnancy had been the catalyst, the ultimate symbol of the family she believed she deserved but could not have. Isabel's arrest made matters worse before they improved. Elena went into overdrive, contacting everyone she knew to rally support for her daughter. She hired a lawyer, who quickly began manipulating the narrative. Isabel was experiencing a mental health crisis. She had been provoked by childhood trauma. She needed assistance, not punishment. The local news picked up on the story, presenting it as a family feud gone wrong. Our names were kept out of it, but anyone who knew us could figure out the details. I went into labor 3 weeks early. The tension eventually overcame my body's ability to safeguard the baby. It was a rough delivery. The baby was little, and my blood pressure rose rapidly. For a harrowing few hours, the doctors were unsure if either of us would survive. My husband later told me that it was the worst night of his life, far worse than finding out Isabel had betrayed him. He'd sat in the waiting room praying to a God he didn't believe in, and promising anything if we lived. We survived. Our daughter was little yet brave, defying all odds to enter the world. When the nurse placed her on my chest, I felt a surge of protective instinct unlike anything I'd ever known. This small creature was utterly reliant on us, and I would do anything to keep her safe from the insanity that had characterized her pregnancy. My husband cried as he held her for the first time. He murmured to her that she would always be loved, protected, and never twisted or used as a pawn in someone else's game. He told her about the positive aspects of our family, the individuals who would love her without conditions or ulterior intentions. He did not mention Isabel, the relative she will never meet. We stayed at the hospital for 6 days, as our daughter gained weight and my blood pressure remained stable. During that period, my husband contended with an ongoing legal matter. Isabel's lawyer advocated for a plea offer that included obligatory therapy rather than jail time. The prosecution cautioned us that with her clean record and familial connection, she was likely to receive probation at best. It felt like a slap in the face after everything she had put us through. However, my husband stated that he no longer cared about punishment. He just wanted her out of our lives. Henrik came to visit us in the hospital and brought a stuffed elephant for the baby. He said it was the first baby gift he had ever given. He held his granddaughter awkwardly but kindly, and I noticed a softness in his expression. He told my husband he was proud of him for protecting his family and interrupting the pattern of enabling that had led Isabel to become who she was. He promised to assist us relocate if we wanted a new start somewhere Isabel couldn't find us. When we went home, the prospect of moving seemed more tempting. Even when the nursery was repainted and the locks were changed again, the house still felt polluted. Every area evoked memories of Sophia's attempted seduction, Isabel's manipulations, and the weeks of stress that nearly cost us everything. The pool, once a selling point, now resembled a crime scene. We couldn't look at it without recalling. My husband's workplace offered him a move to their West Coast headquarters. It would entail abandoning everything we know. We started again in a city where no one knew our tale. We'd be 3,500 miles from Isabel, Elena, and the family members who still saw us as the culprits. It would also entail abandoning the support structure we did have. My parents, our true friends, and the life we built before everything went wrong. We spent long nights talking about it while our daughter slept between us. The prosecution against Isabel was moving forward, but her counsel was successful in portraying her as a victim of mental illness compounded by familial tragedy. She'd been freed on bail with certain terms, including no contact with us, forced therapy, and regular check-ins with a probation officer. But we understood conditions were meaningless to someone who had spent months preparing our demise. Isabel's violation of her bail conditions forced us to make the decision. She did not contact us personally, but instead assigned Sophia to perform her dirty work. Sophia approached me at the grocery store while my daughter was strapped to my chest in a carrier. She said Isabel wanted to apologize, that she was getting assistance, and that she just wanted to see the kid once. Sophia grabbed my elbow and shouted at me, telling me that I had ruined a family and that I would suffer the consequences. Another shopper interfered, and Sophia left, but the harm had been done. I sat in my car, shaking, clutching my baby tightly, knowing we'd never be secure as long as we stayed. My husband made his transfer request that night. When he described the problem to his firm, they expedited it. Within 3 weeks they had arranged for movers, temporary corporate housing, and a position that included a slight rise. Henrik assisted us in promptly selling the house, allowing us to obtain independence without incurring a loss. We only told our closest friends and my parents where we were going and swore them to secrecy. Isabel was detained again for breaking her bond after we published the grocery store incident. This time, the judge revoked bail completely. Her lawyer's protests would go unheard as she remained in detention awaiting trial. My husband did not attend the hearing, but Henrik did, and he reported that Isabel yelled and wailed, accusing us of ruining her life. Despite suffering penalties, she refused to accept responsibility for her conduct. Our final week in town was bittersweet. My parents spent every available moment with their granddaughter, capturing thousands of photos and videos. They knew why we had to leave, but they regretted the barrier it would create between us. My mother assisted me in packing the nursery, meticulously wrapping each thing we had bought with so much hope before our lives crashed. She pledged to pay frequent visits in order to maintain her bond with the infant. My husband met with the prosecutor one last time. They had offered Isabel a deal: 3 years of probation, forced psychiatric therapy, and a permanent restraining order. If she broke any of the terms, she would face 6 years in prison. It wasn't the justice we were looking for, but it was something. The prosecutor informed us that given our relocation and the legal constraints, Isabel would have a difficult time finding us, let alone pestering us. Elena made one final attempt to reconcile. She arrived at our door the night before we went, appearing older and smaller than I remembered. She implored my husband to reconsider, saying Isabel was getting assistance and that the family should forgive. My husband let her glimpse the baby through the glass but would not let her in. He informed her that forgiveness did not imply forgetting, and that safeguarding his daughter required keeping her away from anyone who supported Isabel's behavior. Elena departed crying, but her tears did not move him. We drove away from our house before dawn, with the baby resting soundly in her car seat. My husband reached across and took my hand as we approached the municipal boundaries. In the rearview mirror, I saw our previous life vanish. There was both uncertainty and optimism ahead of us. Hope for a life free of manipulation, poisonous family relationships, and constant anxiety of what Isabel may do next. We had lost a lot: family relationships, our dream home, our sense of security. But we had also gained something. The realization that we could get through anything together, that our love was stronger than anyone's attempts to ruin it. The drive across the country took 6 days. We stopped at random motels, ate in modest diners, and gradually felt the weight of the previous months lift. Each mile increased the distance between us and the turmoil. Our daughter experienced her first sunset in New Mexico and her first mountains in Colorado. My husband grinned more in 6 days than he had in months. By the time we arrived at the Pacific Ocean, we felt like different people, injured, but healing, wounded yet complete. Our new apartment overlooks the Pacific and is a small 2-bedroom that cost twice as much as our previous mortgage. My husband set up his home office in the corner of our bedroom, and I organized the baby's belongings in the little nursery. The building had no pool, only a small patio with fading plants. Our daughter didn't care. She was delighted by the seagulls that had landed on our balcony. The first week we kept looking over our shoulders. Every woman with black hair caused my heart to rush. My husband added extra locks and a doorbell camera, despite the fact that we were on the 3rd story. He'd get up at night to check the windows, then stand over the baby's cot, simply watching her breathe. I caught him obsessively Googling Isabel's name, looking for any indication she'd been released or discovered our whereabouts. His new co-workers invited us to a weekend barbecue. We almost didn't go, but being isolated was as unhealthy. At the celebration, someone inquired about family visits. My husband's jaw tensed as he explained that we were not close to our families. Lucia, the host's wife, must have detected something, as she swiftly changed the conversation. Later she approached me and explained that she had moved here to escape her own terrible family situation. She didn't ask any questions. She simply handed me her phone number. 4 weeks into our new life, my husband's phone rang at 3 a.m. Elena's number appeared on the screen. We had forgotten to block her from his work phone. He let it go to voicemail. Her message was mumbled, possibly hammered. She rambled on about how we had wrecked Isabel, how she was in jail due to our falsehoods, and how we had taken her grandchild. She closed by stating that she had hired a private investigator to find us. My husband deleted the message and blocked the number, but he didn't sleep again that night. I started going to a new mothers group at the community center. The other women shared their delivery tales and grumbled about sleepless nights. When they asked about my delivery, I kept it vague, only mentioning that it was early due to stress. One mother, Anna, had similarly given birth early. Her son was in the NICU for several weeks. We bonded over small babies that fought to enter the world. She became my first true friend here. Someone who was unaware of our history. My husband plunged himself into work. His new team was launching a large project, and the long hours gave him purpose. He'd come home fatigued, but somehow lighter. His employer was impressed by his effort and mentioned opportunities for growth. For the first time in months he spoke about the future without that haunting expression in his eyes. Then Sophia discovered my Instagram. I had kept it private, but she formed a phony account and pretended to be someone from my mother's club. The message was brief. "She's leaving soon. She knows where you are." I immediately presented it to my husband. He called Henrik, who confirmed that Isabel was still in detention awaiting trial. The message was false, but the damage was done. That night, I deleted all of my social media. My parents came to see our baby when she was 4 months old. They tried to mask their regret about the distance by focusing on how much she had grown. My mother held her continuously and memorized every detail. My father assisted my husband in installing better locks, and neither of them understood why we needed them. When they went, my mother grabbed me tightly and whispered that we had done the right thing. The prosecutor called to provide an update. Isabel had agreed to the plea deal: 3 years probation, mandatory therapy, and a permanent restraining order. She would be discharged in a week. My husband's hand shook while he took notes. The prosecutor reminded us that breaching the injunction resulted in automatic prison time and that we were protected. But we both knew paper couldn't stop someone who was determined to harm us. Lucia invited us to dinner. Her husband Matteo was a lawyer who handled a number of family conflicts. My husband inquired about the enforcement of restraining orders without providing any details. Matteo emphasized the reality. They were only as effective as the individual's willingness to obey them. He offered to refer a colleague who specializes in harassment issues. We declined, saying we were not ready to open that door yet. Our daughter began sleeping throughout the night. Such a minor detail, but it felt big after everything. My husband would sneak into her room and watch her sleep happily. One night, I discovered him crying silently. He stated she appeared naive, ignorant of the pandemonium that had erupted upon her arrival. He told her over again that she would never be subjected to such exploitation. Henrik called with news. Isabel had been released and went straight to their old residence. She'd been screaming outside for hours before neighbors contacted police. She was detained for breaking the restraining order. We had no idea it extended to the property. This time the judge was not lenient. She received an 8-month sentence in jail. There are no plea deals. Henrik stated that Elena had fainted in court and begged them to reconsider. I returned to work part-time and found a remote position that allowed me to stay at home with the baby. My new co-workers had no idea about pools, sisters-in-law, or restraining orders. To them, I was simply another busy mother juggling feeding schedules and video chats. The normalcy seemed strange, but welcoming. My husband would take the infant to key meetings and bounce her while working at his standing desk. Anna referred me to her sister-in-law who maintained a tiny daycare in her house. We went to check it out for when I started full-time. The woman was warm, and her home was bright and cheery. There are no pools, only a little sandbox in the backyard. Our daughter sought for the other babies, already social despite her turbulent beginnings. We added ourselves to the waiting list. My husband's firm promoted him to team leader. The role came with a significant salary increase and more flexible hours. He agreed immediately, seeing it as another step away from our previous life. His new business cards arrived with our revised address. He looked at them for a long time before placing them in his wallet. Such a simple thing, but it symbolized our new beginning. Then his cousin Adrian discovered us. Not literally, but through LinkedIn. The message was long and accusatory. He described us as harsh, stated that family should forgive family, and claimed that Isabel was suffering in jail as a result of our vengeance. He mentioned that their grandmother, Margot, was ill and likely dying, and asked how we could keep her great-grandchild away during her final days. My husband did not respond. He screenshotted everything for our records and then blocked him. Lucia planned a beach day for numerous families. We nearly said no. Beaches meant swimsuits, and swimsuits evoked memories. However, our daughter had never seen the ocean up close. She squealed as the waves hit her toes and grabbed handfuls of sand in amazement. Other parents shared snacks and sunscreen. Nobody brought up pools or asked why I tensed when someone changed their bikini strap. 8 months passed. Isabel was released again. This time she did not come looking for us. Henrik stated that she had moved in with Elena, was attending treatment, and had acquired a job at a retail store. She supposedly told folks that she no longer had a sibling. The news should have relieved us, but we knew better than to believe her makeovers. Our lease was up for renewal. The landlord offered a 3-year lease with modest increases. We signed immediately. This modest apartment, with no pool, had become our retreat. Our daughter took her first steps along the short hall. She said her first word, "Bird," from the balcony. Every milestone occurred here, unaffected by the past. My husband joined a weekend basketball league at work. Physical exertion helped to alleviate the remaining anxiousness. He'd return home sweating and grinning, telling me about missed shots and jovial trash talk. His teammates had no idea why he would obsessively check his phone during breaks or always position themselves to watch the gym door. One evening, while preparing dinner, my husband's phone rang. Unknown number with a local area code. He almost didn't respond, but something made him pick up. It was Sophia. She was crying and apologizing, saying she was in treatment and realized how wrong she had been. She begged for pardon, claiming that Isabel had also deceived her. My husband hung up without responding and quickly contacted our attorney. The restraining order was amended to clearly include Sophia. The lawyer stated that while her communication was technically a breach, punishment for a single phone call was unlikely. He told us to document everything and notify the police if she approached us again. That night we decided to invest in a better security system. The installation felt like admitting defeat, but we prioritized our daughter's safety. Lucia's son and our daughter grew inseparable during playdates. They'd chatter to each other in baby language and share toys with the generosity that only toddlers have. Watching them, I realized that our daughter would grow up without cousins or aunts. We had chosen a new family to replace the one we had lost. It was not conventional, but it was healthier. My husband's nightmares reduced but never completely ceased. He would wake up, gasping, and reach for his phone to check the security cameras. I'd hold him until his breathing calmed down, reminding him we were secure, 3,500 miles and a restraining order away. Our daughter slept through everything, unconscious of her father's concerns. We'd kept her innocence, even if we'd lost our own. Henrik came for our daughter's first birthday. He'd clearly aged, the stress of dealing with Isabel's disarray taking its toll. He delivered a modest gift and a hefty check, claiming it was for her education fund. Over coffee he acknowledged to seeing a therapist to work through his role in supporting Isabel. He was learning to set boundaries, including with Elena. Progress was gradual at his age, but it came. The birthday party was tiny, consisting of Anna's family, Lucia's, and a few others from our building. Nobody questioned why no extended family members attended. Our daughter enthusiastically demolished her cake as we sang. My husband snapped hundreds of images, allowing fresh memories to dominate the old. She would not remember this day, but we would never forget it. Our first fearless celebration. That night, after the guests had left and the baby had fallen asleep, we sat on our small balcony. The water extended forever in front of us. My husband drew me in and whispered, "We'd made it through the worst." I wanted to believe him. Our daughter was healthy. We had jobs. We had created a community. But I still flinched when unknown numbers called, double-checked my locks before bed, and felt my heart race when I saw women with dark hair in the grocery store. 2 days later, a parcel arrived without a return address. My husband refused to let me open it and instead called building security. They carefully checked it before releasing the contents. A pricey and gorgeous baby dress, along with a note for my niece. Security stored everything as proof. The police said it did not breach the restraining order because she did not contact us directly. Technically legal, yet emotionally offensive. We donated the dress to charity right away. That weekend we discovered a new flat in a different neighborhood, with better security and no forwarding address. As we packed, our daughter toddled around, attempting to assist by placing toys in boxes. She had no idea we were going to run again. For her, it was an adventure. We signed the lease that afternoon, paying more for quick occupancy. Lucia assisted us in moving without questioning the seriousness of the situation. By Sunday night, we had settled into our new house. Our daughter adjusted immediately, captivated by the different view from her window. My husband and I took a little longer to verify new locks and test new cameras. However, weariness eventually won out. We slept soundly for the first time in days, with our daughter safe between us. The daybreak signaled the start of another day of rebuilding our lives away from the chaos, one small accomplishment at a time. My sister married my ex, and when I revealed my scars, she called me jealous. Now he's stalking us both, and I don't know if I can protect us both. When I was 19, I had a psychotic ex named Victor who targeted me because I came from a damaged household and had little self-esteem. During our 9-month relationship, he shattered every ounce of my self-esteem and convinced me that I was unworthy of love. Every time he yelled at me or touched me, he'd blame it on me because I forced him to do it. That if I didn't push him, he would not injure me. In barely 9 months, he had left me with psychological and physical scars from head to toe, and I only found the strength to leave him after he was arrested and imprisoned. I promptly packed my belongings and left his place. I never saw him again. Until now. It was my sister's wedding, and my first encounter with her fiancé. They lived together on the other side of the planet. It was odd to see my sister Anna walk down the aisle, and I wanted to cry of joy until I saw her husband, Victor, step behind her. My entire world had turned upside down. I felt nauseated, so I had to leave the ceremony and go to the bathroom to throw up. My brain was spinning. Did Victor intentionally seek me down and seduce my sister? Did my sister know what he had done? Didn't she care? I had a lot of questions and very few answers. When I came out of the bathroom 40 minutes later, everyone was already dancing. My sister was the first to notice and invited me over, introducing me to her great husband. It took everything in me not to puke, especially because he smiled the same way he used to after abusing me. I barely managed a hello. But just as I was ready to excuse myself, my sister went away, asking me to bond with Victor a little. My legs went rubbery with anxiety, especially when Victor seized my hand and led me to the dance floor. I attempted to break free gently, but his grip was too firm. He leaned in and murmured into my ear, asking if I missed his touch. I wanted to get sick, and I muttered to him that I wasn't the same vulnerable girl I once was. But rather than taking me seriously, he chuckled. He stated I was even easier than he remembered, and then he threatened to make what he used to do to me feel like a massage if I told anyone about our past. I gulped in dread, and despite my need to scream, I simply slow danced with him, resisting the feminine urge to knee him in the gonads. The following few hours of my life were a blur. I don't recall much. But one incident stands out. Approaching Anna while she was away from Victor. I knew I was endangering my life, but I needed to tell her the truth. I brought her out back where no one could hear us, and I opened up to her. This was the first time I was open about where all of my scars originated from. It felt almost liberating to be able to cry without having to put on a brave face. But as I was pouring my heart out, I noticed Anna's expression contort. She was getting upset, but not with Victor. She was unhappy with me for lying. She refused to believe me, claiming that I was only jealous because she had found a husband before me. I asked her to listen to me. Victor was a monster capable of doing this. I showed her my burn mark down there, but she still refused to listen and urged me to take my envy elsewhere. She left me alone outdoors and went back inside to dance with Victor, all while I sobbed non-stop. That one instant hurt more than anything Victor had ever done to me. The rest of the night between us was really strained. We scarcely looked at each other. What made matters worse was that I believe Victor knew I had told Anna something since he kept giving me this "oh you up" smirk. I left the wedding early and panicked the entire time they were on their honeymoon. I was anxious about Anna's safety. But what I didn't comprehend was that I didn't need to be concerned about Anna. It was me. Since Victor never loved Anna. He had come back for me, and what he did next made that painfully evident when I received an email from Anna last Tuesday. Subject line: exciting news. They decided to extend their honeymoon and were coming to see me. They had already purchased tickets. They'd arrive in 10 days and stay for 3 weeks. I quickly vomited again. The notion of Victor in my area, my secure haven, made me violently sick. I called my employer regarding temporary transfers to other offices, but I was turned down because we are understaffed. I pondered subletting my condo and vanishing for a while, but my agreement prohibits that. I began searching at hotels, thinking that I might be able to stay elsewhere while they were visiting. But it felt like running away again. And after Victor, I vowed myself that I would never allow anyone to make me feel the need to run again. That pledge had served as my anchor during the years of healing and rebuilding. I did the only thing I could think of. I installed security cameras around my apartment, including outside the door, the living room, the corridor, and everywhere except the bathroom. I changed all of my locks, purchased new pepper spray, and informed the building security of a stalker issue so that they could be on alert. I was careful to stress that this guy was dangerous and might mimic a family member to acquire access. I expressly stated that no one would be allowed inside my flat without my personal permission, regardless of who they claimed to be. I memorized emergency numbers and escape routes, preparing for any circumstance imaginable. I thought I was being neurotic and too prepared. Then, yesterday, I received a text from an unknown number containing a photo of me walking into my building after work shot that same day. I blocked the number instantly. 40 minutes later, another unknown number texted. Another shot of myself at the coffee shop across from my office that morning. He's already arrived. He's already here, observing me. The understanding struck me like a physical blow, leaving me breathless and disoriented. Last night I stayed at my friend Sophia's flat. I told her I had a plumbing problem. I didn't sleep at all. I kept checking my phone, waiting for more texts. Nothing arrived. Every creak in the structure and distant siren had me sitting bolt upright, heart thumping. This morning, I returned to my apartment to get clothing for work. I found something that made my blood run cold. A little electronic gadget hidden in the bulb beside my bed, a listening device in my bedroom. The intrusion into my private area felt like another type of assault. I broke it right away, then tore apart my place, hunting for more. I discovered 3 more. One behind the television, another beneath the kitchen table, and one near the window. I smashed them all, packed a bag, and returned to Sophia's. My hands couldn't stop shaking as I shoved random clothes into my luggage without verifying what I was packed. I am writing this from her guest room. I've been staying here for 5 days. Sophia feels something is wrong, but she isn't sure what it is. I don't want to pull her into this mess, but I can't stay alone right now. Sophia has always been there for me, bringing me coffee and stillness and allowing me space without inquiry. I keep asking myself how this is happening. How did he discover me? How did he discover Anna? Was this his intention all along? To infiltrate my family and obtain access to me again? The deliberate nature of everything scares me more than random violence ever could. The saddest aspect is that I have no proof that he sent the photos or planted the devices. Nothing I could bring to the police, only my word against his. And we all know how that went out for Anna. Law enforcement had already failed me. Why should this be any different? I feel like I'm losing my mind. I feel like I'm back in the relationship where I questioned everything. My perceptions, memories, and value. He's regaining influence over me, and I'm not sure how to stop it. That usual fog is rolling in, making me question myself in ways I thought I could transcend. Anna called earlier and said they'd be visiting in 10 days instead of next month. Change of plans. Can't wait to see you. I made up an excuse about a work conference, but she persisted on hanging around at my apartment while I worked. The thought of them waiting for me, of returning home and finding him there, makes my skin crawl. The thought of them in my flat, him touching my belongings and sleeping in my bed. I am literally shaking as I type this. This place I've made for myself, thousands of miles away from my past, is now tainted by his presence. I do not know what to do. When there is no evidence, call the police. Try to persuade Anna again when she clearly does not trust me. Move to another nation. None of these feel like viable possibilities. I feel cornered, caught in an impossible circumstance with no clear way out. So, Reddit, what would you do? How can I protect myself and my sister from someone who has already defeated the system and is now legally part of my family? I survived him once. I am not sure if I can do it again. Update. I received another text. This is a photo of me sitting by Sophia's window right now. The message simply reads, "Found you." I'm going to throw up again. I nearly dropped my phone when I received that message. I found you. My hands were shaking so much that I could barely show Sophia. Her cheeks turned pale when she saw it. This wasn't a random creep or happenstance anymore. Victor was stalking me down like some insane game. We need to call the police, Sophia remarked, reaching for her phone. I grabbed her wrists. And tell them what? That my sister's new husband is sending me photos. That I believe he bugged my apartment but I destroyed all the evidence? They'll think I'm crazy. Sophia's apartment felt exposed with all of its windows. I kept watching shadows walk across the street and wondered whether each one was him. We closed all of the blinds and double-checked the locks. Sophia suggested that I use her bedroom because it had fewer windows and was farther from the front door. I couldn't sleep anyway, so I just lay there staring at the ceiling, leaping at any noise from the street below. Around 2:45 a.m., my phone vibrated again. Another unknown number. I almost didn't look, but what if something was important? What if it's Anna? It was not. Just 4 words. Sweet dreams, Elise. I instantly erased it and shut off my phone. My heart was beating so fiercely that I could feel it in my throat. How did he receive so many different numbers? How did he constantly stay one step ahead? The next morning I called in sick from work. I couldn't risk going somewhere where he could follow me. Sophia offered to stay at home, but I urged she go. There's no purpose in both of us missing work. As soon as she departed, I began investigating. I looked into stalking laws, restraining orders, and anything else that could help. The majority of cases required evidence of explicit threats or several documented events. I received some photos and texts from strange numbers. There is nothing substantial that connects them to Victor. I opened a new email account and began chronicling everything. Dates, times, what happened, and how it made me feel. I captured screenshots of the text before deleting them. It was not much, but it was something. A paper trail, a reality check when I started to doubt myself. Then I called Lucas, my oldest friend from home. If anyone would completely believe me, it would be him. He had witnessed the repercussions of what Victor had done to me 7 years ago. When I was too scared to stay in one city, he helped me move. Jesus Christ, he replied after I had told everything. This guy is seriously deranged. What should I do, Lucas? He's coming here in 10 days with Anna. Lucas paused for a bit. You can't face this alone. Can you come stay with me for a while? He's already tracking me, and I can't just leave my job, my apartment, everything I've built here. Then I'm coming to you, he stated forcefully. I experienced a wave of relief, followed by panic. No, he might hurt you too. He's dangerous, Lucas. We talked for nearly 3 hours, going over ideas that appeared implausible. Lucas eventually recommended something I hadn't considered. Confronting Victor publicly in public. The concept made my stomach turn. But maybe if I met him on my own terms, in daylight, with people around, I'd be willing to attempt it. I texted Anna to see when they were arrive and proposed we meet for coffee on their first day here somewhere public. She responded almost immediately, stating that they had already arrived early that morning. They had arrived at my apartment and were now waiting for me. My blood ran cold. They weren't intended to stay here for another 10 days. I looked at the date on my phone, wondering whether I had somehow lost track of time. No, they had obviously revised their plans without informing me, or Anna told me, and Victor somehow intercepted the message. I called her immediately. Hey, I thought you weren't coming until 10 days from now. We told you we changed our plans, she explained, bewildered. I texted you 3 days ago about it. I never received that text. I'd been staying at Sophia's and avoiding checking my phone because it made me anxious every time it buzzed. I was so preoccupied with the threatening texts that I must have missed Anna's valid text among all the notifications I was attempting to ignore. I'm sorry. Must have missed it with work being so crazy. I made up a story. I'm actually staying at a friend's right now. Plumbing issues in my building. Oh no. Well, we're at your apartment. The super let us in when we explained we were family. I felt a flash of rage. Despite my detailed instructions to building security regarding my stalker problem, the super still let them in. He must have been charmed by Victor's seductive discourse, or he simply ignored my warning. I'll come meet you for lunch, I said, attempting to maintain a steady voice. There's a cafe about 2 blocks from my building. It's very popular. We agreed to meet in an hour. Sophia was still at work, so I couldn't tell her what was going on. I took a brief shower, hoping to wash away my worry and tiredness. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. I had dark circles under my eyes, pale complexion, and a disturbed countenance. I put on some makeup and tried to seem normal. The last thing I needed was Anna remarking on how ill I appeared. I chose the cafe carefully. It was often crowded, the tables were close together, and the staff recognized me as a regular. I came 15 minutes early and requested a table with my back to the wall and facing the entrance. I ordered a coffee I couldn't sip since my stomach was too twisted to take caffeine. When they walked in, I almost ran. Seeing Victor in his element, confident and charming, with his arm around my sister, made me violently uncomfortable. He looked precisely the same as he did 7 years ago, maybe slightly more fleshed out, with a different hairstyle, but those eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, had not changed at all. Anna spotted me and happily waved, drawing Victor to my table. I stood on wobbly legs and accepted her hug with stiff arms. Then Victor appeared, grabbing me into an embrace before I could escape. So lovely to finally meet my sister-in-law properly, he exclaimed loudly enough for surrounding tables to hear. Yet he whispered in my ear, "Miss me?" I hastily pushed away, almost knocking over my coffee. A waitress emerged to take their orders, giving me a chance to gather myself. I sat with my hands under the table so they wouldn't notice them shaking. Anna dominated the conversation, discussing their wedding, honeymoon, and how lovely my city was. I nodded and smiled mechanically, very aware that Victor was watching me. He kept stroking Anna, her hand, her shoulder, her hair, making sure I noticed each casual expression of affection which marked his territory. Your apartment is gorgeous, Anna said. I was shocked by all of the security cameras. Do you have any troubles with break-ins around here? So they had observed those. I was wondering if Victor had already disabled them. Just being cautious, I murmured, my gaze shifting to Victor. Never know who might try to get in. His smile was unwavering, but something flickered behind his eyes. Challenge accepted. The lunch continued with tedious small conversation. Anna appeared unconcerned about the stress, casually talking along while I sat there calculating distances to exits, wondering if yelling would truly get someone to help or simply label me as insane. As we were wrapping up, Victor excused himself to use the restroom. When he left, I grabbed Anna's hand. You need to listen to me, I urged urgently. I didn't lie about Victor. He is dangerous. He's been stalking me, sending me photos and bugging my apartment. Anna's expression stiffened. Stop it, Elise, just quit. I'm not sure what your problem is, but this has to cease. Victor told me you might do this. I froze. He's what? He told me you had some kind of obsession with him years ago, that you couldn't accept when he broke things off and started spreading rumors about him being abusive. My jaw fell. He had preemptively poisoned her against me. Set up the ideal defense. That's not what happened, I said, my voice cracking with desperation. Why would I make something up? Why would I? Because you've always been like this, she said, more louder than she probably meant. A few nearby diners cast glances our way. She lowered her voice. Always dramatic, always needing attention, always making everything about you. The accusation landed like a smack. Was that truly how she saw me? How did my family see me? That's what he wants you to think, I said quietly. That's how abusers operate. They separate you from others who may perceive the truth. The only truth I see, Anna remarked with a frown, is that my sister is trying to ruin my marriage before it's even begun. Victor returned smiling, inquiring what he had missed. The look Anna gave me indicated that the talk was ended. I mumbled something about needing to hurry back to Sophia's to prepare for work tomorrow. I made up an excuse about her pets and my allergies, so they couldn't stay with me. Such a shame, Victor added. We were looking forward to spending quality time together. The way he said it made my skin crawl. I escaped without being touched again, promising to see them for supper tomorrow night. As soon as I turned the corner and was out of sight of the cafe, I broke into a run back to Sophia's. I half expected to see him already there and waiting, but the apartment was vacant. Sophia came home from work to find me pacing her living room, gnawing my nails down to the quick, a habit I'd quit years ago after leaving Victor. They've arrived already, I told her, inside my apartment. He has convinced Anna that I am some delusional ex who cooked up abuse charges. Sophia sat me down, made me sip some water, and then listened. Unlike my sister, unlike the cops, she believed me wholeheartedly, and that single gesture of faith nearly broke me. You're staying here as long as you need, she stated firmly. And we're going to figure this out. That night, I received another text with a photo of me entering Sophia's building after lunch, followed by another of Sophia getting home from work. The note said, "Nice pal." I wouldn't want anything to happen to her. I showed Sophia, anticipating her to flip out. Instead, she became enraged. Not afraid, angry. She described him as a sad coward hiding behind text messages. Her furious rage was precisely what I needed. It reminded me that this wasn't normal, and that I wasn't insane for being scared. We spent that night devising a strategy. First, I'd attempt speaking with Victor personally, meeting him somewhere public, discreetly recording the conversation, and convincing him to reveal what he was doing. Sophia would be close as a backup. If that didn't work, we'd try again with Anna, showing her any concrete evidence we could find. If all else failed, we'd go to the police with whatever evidence we could find, no matter how circumstantial. The next day at work was torturous. I saw him everywhere. In the reflections of windows, in crowds on the street, and behind me in the elevator. Every time my phone vibrated with an email, my heart stopped. My employer saw something was awry and summoned me to her office. I was sure I'd be fired because of my obvious distraction. Instead, she inquired if I was all right. She stared at me with genuine concern. Something about her grandmotherly warmth got past my defenses, and before I realized it, I was telling her everything. Not the ugly details, just that my sister married my abusive ex, and they were now in town, and I was terrified. I was expecting skepticism or awkward cliches. Instead, she quickly offered me a week's personal leave. When I hesitated, concerned about the limited staffing, she remarked, "Your safety is more important than any project deadline." It was a simple statement of truth, but it struck me hard. My safety was important. I mattered. After years of Victor making me feel useless and Anna rejecting my fear as attention-seeking, here was this woman I barely knew outside of work who made my well-being a top priority. I accepted the leave, but asked to stay until the end of the day to finish certain projects. My employer took me to my car that evening and waited for me to drive away. Such a simple act of protection. But it meant everything. I planned to meet Victor in a cafe near my office the following day. I told him I just wanted to clear the air between the two of us. I offered a time when Anna would be at her spa treatment, which she had mentioned during lunch. He consented almost too readily. Sophia and I made careful preparations. I donned a button-up shirt with a small recording device tucked into the front pocket. Sophia would sit close and pretend to work on her laptop. We arrived early and reserved a table in the corner with a clear view of the entryway. Victor arrived on time, dressed perfectly in a casual button-down and designer trousers. He grinned as he approached, and for a little moment, I remembered why I'd fell for him in the first place before I realized who he really was. Elise, he began cheerfully, sitting across from me. I was hoping we'd get the chance to talk privately. I bet you were, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Victor, what is your game here? Why Anna? Why now? He appeared to be genuinely bewildered. Game? I fell in love with an incredible woman who happens to be your sister. Simple as that. The texts, images and bugs in my apartment. Do you expect me to believe that is a coincidence? His demeanor remained unchanged, but he leaned slightly forward. I don't know what you're talking about. Elise. It sounds like you're having some troubles. Maybe you should speak with someone about it. Classic gaslighting. I had anticipated it, but it still made my blood boil. Cut the crap, I said. I know it is you. What I do not know is why. Revenge? A sick power trip? Or did you simply miss having someone to torture? He sighed and looked around, frightened that someone may overhear. He then took out his phone, tapped something and placed it on the table. What are you doing? I inquired, suddenly nervous. Recording our conversation, he stated gently. For my protection. You appear unstable, making wild accusations. My heart fell. He was preparing evidence against me. Anything I said could be altered, manipulated, and used to make me appear delusional, just as he had convinced Anna I was. You haven't changed at all, I finally said. Still the same manipulative monster. He gave a chilly smile that did not reach his eyes. And you're still so easy to shake, they always were. He picked up his phone, paused the recording and stood up. I believe we're done here. I would appreciate it if you could keep your illusions away from my wife. She's concerned about you. You know we are. I watched him leave, defeat sweeping over me. The recorder felt heavy in my pocket. Useless. He had outplayed me yet again. I looked over at Sophia, who appeared to understand right once that things had not gone as planned. I returned to her apartment and reviewed the recording. While expected, it captured nothing incriminating, only Victor's anxiety while I made allegations. Sophia proposed that we take a new approach. Research. If Victor purposefully targeted Anna to get to me, there could be evidence of planning. I began with the mutual friend who introduced them. Anna had mentioned the name Henrik once, but indicated they weren't close. I discovered him through her Facebook friends and messaged him saying that I wanted to surprise Anna with a special gift from the guy who had connected them. Henrik reacted swiftly, as if confused. He claimed he barely knew Victor and had only met him once at a company gathering. Victor approached him, explained that he was new in town, and requested to be introduced to some locals. Henrik had invited him to a dinner party with Anna present. That was it. Sophia and I gazed at each other. If Henrik was telling the truth, it corroborated my assumption that Victor purposefully targeted Anna. However, it was not proof of anything malicious. Just a man looking to be introduced to folks in a new city. I needed more. I hesitantly messaged a handful of Anna's other friends, asking them how they remembered Anna and Victor becoming acquainted. Most comments agreed with Henrik's story. Victor had emerged out of nowhere, chased Anna aggressively, and proposed soon. Claudia, a friend, stated something unusual. Apparently Victor had asked a lot of questions about Anna's family early on, especially about me, where I was living, what I was doing, and if I was seeing anyone. Anna thought it was wonderful that he wanted to get to know her family. That's it, Sophia said. He was fishing for information about you. It certainly appeared that way, but there was no evidence of anything illegal, just creepy and calculating. The next few days followed an uncomfortable pattern. I'd meet Anna and Victor for lunch or tours while retaining an unusual civility. Victor was usually the perfect gentleman in public, but he would brush up against me or mumble things when Anna wasn't looking. Nothing particularly scary, but enough to keep me on edge. Reminders that he was in command. Anna seemed unconcerned, but I caught her throwing me worried looks when she thought I wasn't looking. I wondered what Victor said her about me when they were alone. What poison was he dribbling into her ear? We ate dinner at their hotel restaurant on their 6th night in town. I'd made a point of suggesting only public settings for our meetings, rather than private ones. But halfway through the meal, Victor purposefully knocked over his wine glass, spilling crimson wine on my white blouse. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, he said, visibly distressed. Elise, the bathroom is only down the hall. Anna, please give her your stain remover pen. Before I could resist, Anna handed me her handbag and told me to hurry before the stain set. I hesitated, unwilling to leave the restaurant's public environment. Go on, Victor insisted. I'll order you another drink while you clean up. The bathroom was located at the end of a lengthy hallway, away from the main diner. I hurried, hoping to be as quick as possible, but while wiping at the stain, the bathroom door opened. Victor walked inside, locked the door behind him, and leaned against it. My heart almost stopped. We were alone. For the first time in 7 years, I found myself truly alone. I backed up till I struck the wall, attempting to create as much space between us as possible. What do you want? I managed to ask, my voice louder than I had anticipated. He looked at me for a moment, tilting his head slightly. You know, I've been thinking about this moment for years. What I'd say once I had you alone again. Stay back, I advised, grabbing into my handbag for the pepper spray. I'll scream. He got out his phone and showed me that he was recording. Go ahead and scream. Attack me. I'll just show everyone how my mentally ill sister-in-law assaulted me when I arrived to see if she needed assistance. My hand moved away from my handbag. He was correct. Anything I did would be twisted against me, as it always had been. Why are you doing this? I asked, my voice barely audible. It's been 7 years. Why don't you just leave me alone? 7 years, 3 months and 14 days, he corrected, stepping closer. Did you really think I'd forget you? That I would let you leave without consequences? He casually recalled the exact time since I'd left him, which drove frost through my veins. He had been counting the days. So that's what it is. Revenge. You married my sister to get back at me. He laughed. A sound that used to make my tummy flutter but now causes it to turn. Initially, yeah. It wasn't simple to find you, you know. You did a good job covering your traces. But then I remembered your sister, how you were constantly talking about her and trying to protect her. His smile broadened. Isn't it ironic? You're sick, I said, spitting. Anna doesn't deserve to be used like this. Here's the interesting part, he said as if I hadn't spoken. I really like Anna. She is kind, uncomplicated, and grateful for anything I do for her. Not like you. Always questioning and fighting. He talked about her as if she were a well-behaved pet, which made me want to vomit. If you hurt her, you'll do what? He interrupted, taking another step forward. Now he was only an arm's length away. Run to the cops with your crazy stories? Tell your folks. We both know how nicely it turned out during the wedding. He stretched out swiftly and brushed his fingertips against my cheek. I flinched away, but there was nowhere to go with the wall behind me. You'll always be my favorite, though, he said. No one reacts as you do. No one breaks quite as gracefully. A tap at the door made us both freeze. Hello? Is anyone in there? A woman's voice called. Victor's expression darkened for a brief moment before he recovered. Think about what I said, he muttered before unlocking the door and stepping out, stating loudly, All yours, ma'am. I was just checking to see if my sister-in-law needed help with a wine stain. I lingered in that bathroom for a long time after he left, hands braced against the sink, trying not to shake. His words kept repeating in my thoughts. You will always be my favorite. His voice was possessive, and I was certain that I still belonged to him in some way. When I eventually returned to the table, Anna seemed concerned. Is everything okay? You were gone for a while. Fine, I said automatically. Stain was stubborn. Victor smiled at me across the table, raising his freshly poured glass of wine and a tiny toast that only I noticed. I couldn't eat another bite after that, so I basically pushed food around my plate until we left. That night, I told her everything. She wanted to go directly to the police. But what would we say? That my brother-in-law made some strange remarks to me in the bathroom. Did he touch my face? Nothing was prohibited. It was simply disturbing in its context. The following day, I decided to take a fresh approach with Anna. I invited her to lunch, just the two of us. I said I wanted some sister time before they departed. To my astonishment, she consented quickly. This time I was careful not to make outright charges against Victor. Instead, I addressed casual questions about how they met, allowing her to tell the narrative of Henrik introducing them at a dinner party. I noticed some minor contradictions in what Henrik had told me. According to Anna, Victor specifically requested to see her after seeing her portrait at Henrik's house, although Henrik claimed the introduction was happenstance. It's funny, I stated cautiously. I was speaking with Henrik recently. He didn't remember purposely introducing you two? Anna frowned. What? Why were you speaking with Henrik about us? I realized my error too late. I wanted to get to know more about Victor since I missed the whole dating period. So you've been following up on him and questioning my friends behind my back? Her voice increased significantly, drawing attention from surrounding tables. It's not like that, I insisted. I'm just trying to understand. No, you're attempting to find anything wrong. You can't simply be glad for me, can you? She rose abruptly. Victor was correct. He suggested you do something like this. Of course he did. He was always a step ahead. Anna, please. I'm done with this conversation, she stated forcefully. I am heading back to the motel. Do not follow me. I watched her storm away, feeling helpless. Victor had positioned himself expertly, anticipating my every move and poisoning Anna against me before I could even react. My sister and I were becoming increasingly estranged. Back at Sophia's, I flopped on the sofa, tired. Every attempt to defend Anna or expose Victor only appeared to drive her away and give him more ammunition. I felt as if I were playing chess against a master while blindfolded. My phone vibrated with a text from Lucas. He'd been checking in every day, and I'd been keeping him updated. His message was straightforward. Anything about his previous relationships? The pattern of behavior indicates a stronger case. That was a nice point. If Victor did this to me, he most likely did it to others as well. I'd been so concentrated on his connection with Anna that I hadn't considered looking back. I spent the next few hours going through social media, attempting to trace Victor's previous connections. It was not easy. He had a little online presence, which was carefully maintained. Eventually, I discovered Claudia, a woman who had left cryptic but pointed comments on previous images tagged with Victor. Things like, "Some memories are better buried," and "True colors always emerge." Finally, I took a chance and messaged her, explaining who I was and asked if she wanted to chat about Victor. To my astonishment, she responded almost immediately with her phone number. Claudia was cautious when I called. But as soon as I described my situation, Victor's marriage to my sister after years of dating me, she opened up. He did the same thing to me and my cousin, she added, her voice filled with ancient rage. He dated me for nearly a year and was charming at first, but then became domineering and abusive. When I finally left him, he set up a meeting with my cousin in a gym. Began dating her. I tried to warn her, but... She paused. She didn't believe you, I concluded. Worse. She believed him when he suggested I was lying out of jealousy. We haven't spoken in almost a year because of him. Her tale was eerily similar to mine. What happened at the end? I asked. Claudia was quiet for a bit. He harmed her worse than he did me. Put her in a hospital. That's when she finally believed me. My blood became chilly. Have you gone to the police? We tried. He provided alibis, altered evidence, and made my cousin appear unstable. The charges were later withdrawn. She sounded tired, like someone who had fought a long war and failed. We received a restraining order, but that was it. Last I heard, he relocated to another state. After we hung up, I sat in startled silence. Then I began Googling more specifically, using terms such as Victor Henrik abuse and Victor Henrik restraining order. I discovered 4 more ladies who had shared their experiences in support groups or local news comments. Though they did not mention his entire name, the pattern was consistent. Charm, isolation, violence, and escape. Then he'd go after someone close to them. It was meticulous, purposeful, and horrifying. That night I didn't sleep. Instead I continued to investigate, document, and make a case. By morning I had a digital folder full with screenshots, dates, patterns, and 4 ladies who were eager to share their experiences if necessary. But will it be sufficient? Anna was already dubious of my motivations. Victor had already labeled me as jealous and unstable. How could I convey this proof without making it appear like exactly what he predicted I would do? As I was puzzled about this, Anna texted me. After our dispute yesterday, I didn't expect to hear from her so soon. Can we speak alone? Hotel lobby. 9:30 a.m. A spark of hope ignited in my chest. Perhaps she had been thinking about our chat. Maybe what I said went through. I instantly responded that I'd be there, and then spent the next hour deciding what evidence to bring, what to say, and how to approach this chance. Sophia advised prudence. It could be a trap. Victor might have sent that text. She had a point, but I needed to try. I got at the hotel early, found a seat with a clear view of all entrances, and waited. At precisely 9:30 a.m., Anna appeared alone. She appeared exhausted, with black circles beneath her eyes partially covered by makeup. Thanks for coming, she replied quietly, sitting across from me. Of course. I resisted the impulse to dive right into all of my evidence. Is everything all right? She looked around uneasily before responding. I do not know. Victor and I had a fight last night. My heart rate increased after I told him about our lunch. What type of fight? She stroked her wrist absently, and for the first time, I noticed what appeared to be the edge of a bruise fading beneath her bracelet. He became quite angry. You said you were attempting to separate us, that you've always been envious of what we had. I wanted to scream that what they had was a pure fake, but I kept back. Has he hurt you, Anna? Her gaze flashed up to mine, then away. No, he simply held my arm a little too tightly. He was upset. Classic minimization. I'd done this numerous times. Anna, I remarked gently. That is not acceptable. No matter how unhappy someone is, they have no right to harm you. It's not like that, she insisted. It happened just once. He apologized immediately. It was like listening to my own words from 7 years ago. The same reasons, the same desperate assumption that it was only a one-time occurrence that will never happen again. Can I show you something? I inquired carefully. She hesitated and then nodded. I took out my phone and showed her a photo I'd kept for years of my arm covered with finger-shaped bruises. This was after Victor had grabbed me too forcefully the first time. He also apologized right away. Her eyes expanded. I'm not sure. That might be anything. Anyone. I have more, I replied gently. Not only from me. From other women. Claudia, Marta, Isabel. All with the same narrative. All related in some way. Anna's cheeks turned pale. You are making this up. You must be. I wish I was, I murmured, overwhelmed with sadness. But deep down, I believe you understand I'm not. That's why you texted me today, right? Something felt wrong. She stared at me for a long time, struggle evident in her eyes. Then she gazed down at her wrist again, gradually removing her bracelet to see the whole bruise, a definite handprint wrapped around her delicate skin. He said it wouldn't happen again, she murmured softly. He always says that, I answered gently. To all of us. For the first time since the wedding I noticed a break in her resolve, a glimmer of doubt. It wasn't much, but it was something. A beginning. What should I do? She inquired, her voice small. First, you don't go back to that hotel room alone, I replied firmly. Come with me right now. We will sort out the rest together. She seemed torn, staring toward the elevators. These are my things. I need my passport and clothes. We can work that out. Your safety is the most important thing right now. Just when I thought she was going to accept, her phone rang. She stared down at it, and the color left her face. This is Victor. He's in the lobby. He says he sees us. My heart was in my throat as I snapped my head around and scanned the hotel lobby. There he was, sitting near the reception desk, staring directly at us with that smug little smile I'd come to detest. My entire body became hard. Don't look, I whispered to Anna. Just get up and walk with me to the front doors. Act normally. She nodded almost silently and gathered her purse with shaky hands. We stood up casually, as if we were two sisters concluding their coffee date. I laced my arm through Anna's, partly for comfort, but largely to keep her from bolting. The exit was around 25 steps away. Elise. Victor's voice reverberated throughout the lobby. Everyone turned to look. Damn that. Classic manipulation. Creating a commotion in public so we couldn't ignore him without looking nuts. Keep walking, I muttered. But Anna had already frozen. I felt her trembling against me. Victor approached us, all lovely grins for the passers-by. Honey, there you are. I've looked everywhere. He reached for Anna's arm, the one with the bruises, and I automatically moved between them. We're just going out for some sister time, I announced loudly enough for anyone close to hear. Shopping, you know, girl stuff. His eyes tightened for a split second before the mask slid back into place. Actually, we had that lunch reservation, remember? With my business associates. Anna looked down. I forgot. No problem, sweetheart. He reached around me to take her hand. We should head up so you can change. I could see it occurring in real time. Anna retreating back into herself, the little period of clarity vanishing. I was losing her again. Actually, I gasped, Anna isn't feeling well. Migraine? She had mentioned it earlier. Right, Anna. She stared at me and then at Victor, clearly caught between us. Is this true? Victor inquired, his voice filled with concern as his gaze remained icy. After what felt like an eternity, Anna nodded. I do have a headache. Then I'll take care of you upstairs, Victor said, his grip on her hand tightening visibly. Women's problems too, I hastily added. She needs her sister right now. Do you understand? I could see him calculating, conscious that people were watching the exchange. He couldn't create a scene without exposing himself. Fine, he finally replied. I will reschedule lunch. Text me after you've finished with your sister time. The way he said it sounded nasty. We will, I assured, already leading Anna to the exit. Once outside, I almost dragged her to the cab stand. We got into the first available cab and I supplied Sophia's address. I only allowed myself to breathe when we were moving. He's going to be so angry, Anna muttered, looking back at the hotel as it faded behind us. But he can't hurt you if you're not there, I explained. She rubbed her wrists again. You do not comprehend. He will find me. He always does. The dejected assurance in her voice struck me hard. I'd experienced the same grim inevitability several times. Not this time, I pledged. This time you have me and Sophia and evidence. Anna broke down totally in Sophia's apartment. She sobbed on Sophia's couch while I prepared tea and Sophia secretly triggered her home security system. Between tears, Anna admitted that things had become worse. The controlling conduct began during their honeymoon. Checking her phone, critiquing her attire, and keeping track of who she talked to. The first physical incident occurred barely 4 days ago. He got mad when I spent too long on the phone with Mom, she told me. Said I was ignoring him. I wanted to say I told you so, but I bit my tongue. Instead, I showed her everything I'd gathered. Claudia's and others' testimonies, the pattern of conduct, and images of my own torture 7 years ago. Anna glanced at the proof, her gaze shifting from one photo to the next, her hands quivering as she read Claudia's statement. I could see her battling internally, between the Victor she believed she knew and the monster shown in these records. She took a very nasty photo of my damaged ribs from 7 years ago. I thought, she said, her voice breaking. I thought he was perfect. He was so kind to me. So attentive. Her breath caught. But last night when he became angry, I noticed something different in his eyes. Something chilly. Something felt familiar. But I couldn't place it. She looked up at me and said, Wasn't that the identical look you described at the wedding? I nodded slowly. That is how he operates. 2 different individuals. Everyone sees the lovely one, but only his victims know who he truly is. What did I do? She whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. I married him. I chose him over my sister. He's a master manipulator, I explained. We've all fallen for it. Even the police. Just suddenly, Anna's phone burst with messages. Victor, of course, alternated between anxious texts, asking whether she was okay, and increasingly aggressive demands for her location. Classic abuser whiplash. Turn it off, Sophia offered. Or better yet, let me see it. Anna gave up her phone. Sophia removed the SIM card and turned the phone back on. We can keep this for evidence, but he can't track it now. Sophia is a smart girl. We spent the next few hours devising a plan. Anna would stay with Sophia while I returned to my place to retrieve necessary materials. Then we'd all move to Lucas' house across town, somewhere Victor wouldn't think to look. We'd next contact a lawyer to initiate divorce procedures and seek a more comprehensive restraining order. He'll contest everything, Anna remarked dejectedly. Drag it out forever. Let him try, I responded. We have evidence now. Real evidence. I left them at Sophia's and took a cautious path to my place, frequently checking to see if I was being followed. My building appeared normal and peaceful. The security guard nodded as I walked in. Is everything okay, miss? Your brother-in-law was searching for you earlier. My stomach sank. When? About an hour ago. He said he needed to drop something off for you. I told him you were not home, at least the guard had not let him in. I thanked him and dashed into my flat, unlocking the 3 new locks I'd put. The property appeared to be in perfect condition, but I no longer trusted looks. I quickly checked for new listening devices before throwing critical clothes and documents into a rucksack. My phone rang when I was retrieving my passport from the desk drawer. Unknown number. I almost disregarded it, but my intuition told me to respond. Hello, Elise. Victor's voice chilled my veins. Where is my wife? I don't know what you're talking about, I claimed, still packing one-handed. Don't act dumb. I saw you leaving with her. Where is she? Safe from you, I snapped, dropping pretense. And she's going to stay that way. He laughed. That frigid laugh used to scare me. You've always been a fighter, Elise. This is what I appreciated about you. Breaking you was far more rewarding. You failed, I murmured, amazed by my own composure. You didn't break me then, and you won't break Anna now. We'll see. His voice sharpened. I want my wife back within an hour, or I'll call the police and report her missing. I will inform them that her mentally unstable sister has stolen her. I have quite a collection of your crazy texts and emails to show them. Are you talking about the ones you made up? Go ahead. We have real evidence. Evidence of what? A guy who grabbed his wife's arm during an argument against a jealous sibling who has had fantasies about me. Who do you think people will believe? He had a point. Even with Claudia's testimony and my documents, it would be a tough battle in court. 1 hour, he reiterated. Or things get very ugly for both of you. He hung up. I packed fast, my mind racing. We needed to move quickly. I contacted Sophia as I left my flat, choosing the back stairs rather than the elevator. Change of plans, I remarked as soon as she responded. Victor is threatening to go to the police. We need to get to Lucas's now. Okay, Anna is in the shower. We'll be ready in 10. I hailed a cab, still looking for Victor. The drive to Sophia's seemed forever. Every red light represents eternity. When we finally arrived, I tossed money at the driver and dashed up to her apartment. Sophia answered my urgent knock with a troubled expression. Anna's gone. What? How? She received an SMS while you were gone. She said it was from her friend Jennifer, but I believe it was actually Victor. She appeared upset. I went to make a call in the bedroom. When I checked on her, the bathroom window was open and she had left. I sank on the couch, defeated. He'd approached her again, perhaps threatening her. Or me. Sophia sat next to me. Now what? I looked at the blank wall, contemplating. The hotel. He will take her back there. It's the only location where he has complete control. Calling the cops still seemed fruitless without Anna's willingness to bring charges. We needed more. Something irrefutable. Then I remembered my hidden phone. The one I had slipped inside Anna's bag when she first returned to Victor. I had put a small prepaid phone into an inner zippered pocket of her purse while assisting her in finding her lipstick on the first day she arrived. Victor wouldn't notice it. Anna's large luggage had dozens of compartments, and he wasn't the kind to go through her personal items in front of others. I took Sophia's laptop and logged into my tracking application. After an agonizing minute, a tiny blue dot emerged on the map. The phone was on, and it was at the hotel. She's there, I stated. Now we just need a way to get her out without Victor stopping us. Sophia thought for a moment. How about your parents? Victor can't exactly withhold Anna from them without appearing suspicious. It was perilous including my parents in this issue. But Sophia was correct. Victor had carefully nurtured his image among them. He couldn't say no if they showed up wanting to see their daughter. I placed the call, ready myself for disbelief. To my astonishment, my parents actually listened. Really listened. Maybe it was the desperate tone in my voice. Perhaps they had noticed signals but disregarded them. Regardless, they agreed to help. We'll be on the next flight, Dad stated confidently. Text us the hotel details. Sophia and I discussed strategy while we waited for my folks to arrive. We called Claudia and the other women who had agreed to provide formal statements to our lawyer. We arranged all of our evidence into files and continued to monitor the tracking dot to ensure Anna remained at the hotel. My parents arrived 6 hours later. I met them at the airport, grateful beyond words to have reinforcements. Mom held me tightly and apologized for not believing me sooner. Dad looked grimmer than I'd ever seen him, with his jaw set in a way that reminded me of when he was a college fighter. We headed straight to the motel. Mom, Dad, Sophia, and I marched across the foyer like an invading army. The receptionist knew me and frowned. We're here to see our daughter and son-in-law, Dad said simply. Room 512. I'll need to call up first, the receptionist explained. No need, Dad replied. We'll surprise them. He took off for the elevator without waiting for permission, leaving the rest of us trailing after. Mom gave a strong tap on the door to room 512. We heard movement inside, and Victor opened the door, his surprise swiftly replaced by a warm smile. Mom and Dad, what a great surprise. Mom pushed past him without speaking. Where is Anna? Victor's smile wavered. She is resting. Migraine. I want to see her, Mom pleaded, already walking toward the bedroom. Victor stepped in her path. She really shouldn't be disturbed. Dad put a strong hand on Victor's shoulder. Son, I believe you should sit down. We need to talk. Victor's face flashed with wrath, which I recognized, but he couldn't express it to my parents. Not if he wanted to retain his ideal son-in-law image. While Dad kept Victor engaged in the suite's living area, Mom Sophia and I saw Anna cuddled up on the bed. She was not sleeping. Her eyes were red and puffy from crying. When she spotted us, she shrank back and rushed into Mom's arms. I'm very sorry, she wailed. He threatened to hurt Elise if I didn't return. He showed me photos of her residence. He said he could get to her at any time. It's okay, Mom said, stroking her hair. We're all together now. We are taking you home. Dad cornered Victor on the couch in the living room and showed him printouts of the evidence we'd acquired. Victor's expression was one of fury. These are obviously fabricated, he stated as we entered. Elise has always been unstable. I am jealous of my relationship with Anna. Save it, Dad stopped him off. We've heard from Claudia, Marta and Isabel, and the others. Victor's eyes shot to me with intense anger, then returned to Dad with trained compassion. I'm not sure who these women are. This is clearly a coordinated attack on my character. We're leaving, Mom said, her arm securely around Anna. Each of us. This includes my daughter. Victor stood up. Anna is my wife. She is not going anywhere. Yes, I am, Anna replied quietly. It was her first time directly contradicting him in front of others. I experienced a wave of pride. Victor's mask slipped. You ungrateful. He lunged at her and a series of events occurred simultaneously. Dad stepped between them. Sophia grabbed out her phone and began recording. Mom drew Anna behind her. And I had been prepared for this moment for 7 years. I clicked the panic button on my phone, which automatically contacted 911 and began recording. Don't touch my daughter, Dad said, his voice dead calm. Victor appeared to understand he had overplayed his hand. He smoothed his shirt and the mask slid back into place. This is ridiculous. You are all overreacting to a simple mistake. Anna, honey, tell them we are happy. Anna moved forward, still trembling but standing taller. We're done, Victor. I want a divorce. You don't mean that, he replied, his voice tightening. You're confused. Your sister has turned you against me. No, Anna responded. You did that yourself. She pulled up her sleeve, displaying injuries on her wrist. This is who you really are. Victor's face was distorted with wrath. He surged again, shoving Dad away. But before he could reach Anna, I blocked his path. I would have backed down 7 years ago. Now I stood my ground. You don't get to hurt anyone else, I told you. He gripped my arm as he had done numerous times before, his fingers pressing into the same wounded region. But this time, I wasn't a terrified 19-year-old. I twisted out of his hands, employing a self-defense technique I'd trained hundreds of times. Victor, taken aback by the opposition, staggered forward. Dad regained his balance and grabbed Victor from behind, detaining him just as hotel security entered the room, followed quickly by the police who had responded to my panic button. The following few hours were a jumble of comments, evidence submissions, and Victor being carried away in handcuffs while screaming his innocence. However, because the assault occurred in front of witnesses and was recorded from numerous angles, the authorities were forced to take it seriously. The responding cops were unexpectedly understanding, particularly the female investigator who took Anna's statement in private. That night, Anna, my parents, Sophia and I stayed together at my apartment. Safety in numbers. Anna remained quiet, contemplating what had transpired. I didn't urge her to speak. I recall how overpowering it seemed in those initial days after fleeing Victor. In the morning, we met with a lawyer who specializes in domestic violence cases. She assisted Anna in filing for a temporary restraining order and initiating divorce proceedings. Because they had only been married a short time and had no common assets, the divorce would be quite simple. Emotional healing would take longer. Victor remained in detention, and bail was rejected based on the evidence we presented demonstrating his pattern of behavior with several women. The prosecution decided to file charges for stalking and harassment in addition to the hotel incident. Over the next few weeks, other women shared similar accounts about Victor, establishing an undeniable pattern of predatory behavior. The case against him became stronger by the day. Even his lawyer began exploring for plea agreements. Anna opted to temporarily return to live with our parents. She wanted space to recuperate and discover who she was independent of Victor's influence. I really understood. We talked every day, rekindling the sister bond that Victor had worked so hard to destroy. 4 months later, Victor agreed to a plea agreement that included 7 years in prison, required treatment, and a permanent restraining order from contacting any of his victims, including Anna and me. It was not the longest sentence, but it was something. More significantly, there would be a record, making it more difficult for him to harm others in the future. On Anna's 2-year wedding anniversary, we held a different type of ceremony. A divorce party. Just a modest gathering of family and friends who had stood by us through everything. Sophia created a cake with "Freedom" written on it, and Lucas flew in for the weekend. We did not discuss Victor or what had transpired. We just rejoiced being together and safe. Anna is still in therapy, processing her experience. So am I, to be honest. Some wounds take longer to heal than others, but we're both getting there gradually. I wish I could say I don't think about Victor anymore, but that's a lie. I still double-check my locks before bed and look over my shoulder when walking alone. Those behaviors may never completely go, but they no longer dominate me. My phone's tracker app continues to ping with Anna's whereabouts from time to time. We preserved it by mutual agreement, a safety precaution that gives us both comfort. Not out of control, but out of affection. A nonverbal method of saying, "I have your back." Last week, Anna called to let me know she had met someone. For the time being, only informal coffee dates are scheduled. Nothing major, but she seemed upbeat and hopeful, as if she were going at her own pace and terms. As for me, I'm working on the domestic violence support organization Sophia and I founded. Helping other women notice and leave violent relationships has turned out to be very effective treatment for my own trauma. Every success story seems like another brick in the wall that connects my past and future. Victor stole 7 years of my life, years I spent looking over my shoulder, questioning myself, and waiting for the next shoe to drop. I won't give him any more. My sister screamed, "He stole it," and Dad dragged me out into the freezing night. 3 weeks later, she was exposed, and Dad begged me to return. I'm Marcus, 19 now, but I was 16 when this all went down. If you'd asked anyone in my family to describe me back then, they'd probably say, the problem child. That's what I was to them. The screw-up, the disappointment, the one who could never do anything right. My dad was one of those old-school types who believed respect only flows one direction, up. You give it to him without question, or you get the sharp edge of his temper and sometimes worse. My mom? She was his echo chamber, repeating every harsh word like it was scripture. And then there was Sierra, my sister, 2 years younger but somehow the golden child of the entire operation. Sierra could literally burn down the kitchen making microwave popcorn, and Dad would call it a learning opportunity. I'd forget to take out the trash one time and suddenly I'm irresponsible and going nowhere fast. That's how it always was. Everything she did got excused or praised. Everything I did proved I was destined to fail. When she aced a test, it was because she was naturally smart and hardworking. When I aced a test, it was dumb luck. She was the angel. I was the anchor dragging the family down. I always knew it was unfair, but I never thought she'd weaponize it the way she did that night. It started like any other evening. I was in my room on my ancient laptop, half downloading music and half pretending to do homework. It was late, maybe close to midnight. My door flew open so hard it slammed into the wall, and both my parents stormed in like I'd triggered some kind of alarm. Mom's face was flushed red. Dad's forehead veins were bulging. And behind them, Sierra was putting on an Oscar-worthy performance, sobbing so hard you'd think someone died. "He stole it," she wailed, pointing straight at me. "I saw him take it from Dad's wallet." "What?" I sat up, completely confused. Dad was already tearing through my room like a detective on a cop show. He grabbed my pillow, lifted it up, and there it was. A wad of crumpled bills, maybe $350 to $400, stuffed underneath. I swear my stomach dropped through the floor. "I told you," Sierra choked out, fake tears streaming down her cheeks. My brain couldn't even process it. I hadn't touched his wallet. I hadn't been anywhere near it. But before I could get a word out, Dad was in my face, jabbing his finger into my chest. "You've embarrassed this family for the last goddamn time. You think we haven't noticed things going missing before? You think we're idiots?" I shot up, shaking my head. "That's not mine. She planted it. She's lying. Why would I steal money when I've been saving every dollar I make from babysitting and mowing lawns? Ask Mrs. Chen next door." "Enough!" He barked so loud the window rattled. "A liar and a thief. You've turned this house into a joke." I looked at Mom for backup, but she wouldn't even meet my eyes. She just repeated whatever Dad said like it was the law. Meanwhile, Sierra stood behind them with her head down, playing the traumatized saint. But I caught it. That tiny smirk, that flicker of satisfaction on her lips as Dad started throwing my stuff into a trash bag like I was garbage they were tossing out. "Dad, please." "It's not true," I said, my voice cracking. But it didn't matter. He grabbed my backpack from the corner, dumped it on the bed and started shoving random clothes inside. Mom started to say something, but one glare from Dad shut her up immediately. Sierra let out a huge sniffle. "I'm scared to even be in the same house as him. What if he gets violent? What if he hurts me? That hurt worse than anything." I spun toward her, heart pounding. "What are you talking about? I've never touched you. I've never—" But the damage was done. Dad's jaw clenched. "That's it. Out. Now." They shoved the bags into my arms and dragged me down the hallway, Sierra trailing behind, whispering just loud enough for me to hear, "I told you they'd believe me." When we got to the front door, Dad yanked it open. The night air hit me like a slap, freezing cold. I was still barefoot, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. Dad shoved me onto the porch so hard I stumbled. My sneakers were sitting right by the door, so I grabbed them before he could slam it shut completely. "You don't come back here until you're ready to admit what you did and apologize to your sister," he said, his voice cold and final. "I didn't do anything," I choked out, my throat raw. "She's lying to you. She set me up. Don't you dare talk about her like that," Dad snapped. "She's been nothing but good to this family. You're jealous, Marcus. Jealous and bitter." The door slammed shut, rattling the glass. For a moment I just stood there, trash bag slipping from my hands, waiting for it to swing back open. Waiting for them to realize they'd just kicked out their own son over some crocodile tears and planted cash. It never did. I sat down on the porch steps, shivering, staring out at the quiet street. I wasn't just grounded. I wasn't just in trouble. I was out. Exiled. 15 years old, standing outside my own house with nothing but a trash bag of clothes and a backpack. I knew then that Sierra had won. She had their trust, their love, their blind loyalty. And I was disposable. I remember clutching that trash bag like it was a lifeline, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. Part of me wanted to pound on the door until they listened, another part knew it wouldn't matter. They'd made their choice, and as I finally stepped off that porch and started walking into the night, one thought burned brighter than the rest. They chose to believe her lies over my truth. That's when I realized I wasn't just the black sheep. I'd already been cut out of the herd. The first night I just walked around the block until my legs hurt. I wasn't even sure where I was going. It was late, freezing, and I was clutching a trash bag like some kind of runaway. I thought about crashing at the park, but the benches were soaked from the sprinklers. Then I remembered. Jenna lived a few blocks over. She'd been my best friend since middle school, so I figured maybe her parents would let me crash for the night. Her eyes went wide when she saw me standing there in sweatpants, holding a trash bag. She pulled me inside fast, whispered questions, and I told her they'd kick me out. She didn't look surprised, just sad. She gave me a blanket on the floor and some leftover pizza, and I slept better than I had in weeks. Her mom wasn't as sympathetic. The next morning she pulled me aside. She wasn't mean, just blunt. "Marcus, you can stay a couple nights, but I can't afford another mouth to feed. You're gonna have to figure something else out." I nodded, pretending it was fine, but my stomach twisted. By the third night, Jenna's mom drove me to school early and told me I couldn't come back. That was it. I stuffed my trash bag into my locker and pretended I had somewhere else to go. From then on, I started couch surfing. A classmate let me crash on their couch one night. Another let me stay in their basement, but only for one night. People didn't want to deal with my family drama. After about a week, I ran out of options. That's when I started sleeping wherever I could, behind the gas station, in a corner near the dumpsters where the light didn't reach. I tried hiding in the library until closing, but the security guard found me after a couple nights and kicked me out. I even tried the school bathroom once, locking myself in a stall, but someone came in, saw my bag, and word spread fast. Hunger was worse than the cold. I had maybe $50 saved from mowing lawns and babysitting. That money disappeared fast on cheap burgers and vending machine snacks. After that, I either skipped meals or drank from water fountains. My stomach growled so loud in class I'd get stares. School didn't make things easier either. Sierra worked fast. By the end of the first week, everyone had heard the story. How I stole money from my dad. How I got kicked out. She made it sound like I was a junkie in training. Kids pulled their backpacks closer when I sat near them. Teachers gave me long looks that said they'd already been warned about me. One girl in math class moved her notebook as I sat down. "Sorry, I don't want my stuff stolen," she muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. The whole row snickered. I wanted to scream, but I knew it wouldn't help. One day in the hallway, Tyler, some basketball player, shoulder-checked me hard and yelled, "Watch your hands, thief." I shoved him back on reflex, and for a second I thought we were about to throw down. A teacher broke it up, but I got the warning. Not him. "One more incident, Marcus, and you're suspended." I heard it everywhere. Sierra's responsible with money, unlike some people. I'd catch her glance across the cafeteria, give me that tiny smirk, then go back to her perfect act with her friends. She was enjoying it. By the second week, I was a ghost at my own school. Nobody wanted me around. I sat alone, ate alone when I had food, and pretended I didn't care. But inside, it was eating me alive. Nights were the worst. I'd curl up with my backpack as a pillow and my hoodie over my face, hoping cops wouldn't hassle me or some drunk wouldn't stumble by. The cold concrete made my back ache. My shoes reeked from walking miles every day just to kill time, and all I could think was, my own family did this to me. Not strangers, not enemies. My sister. One night I tried sneaking back into the library. I figured if I hid better, maybe they wouldn't notice. I tucked myself behind a row of shelves, using my bag as a pillow. Around midnight, the guard's flashlight hit me right in the eyes. He shook his head. "You can't stay here, kid." He walked me out the side door like I was trespassing. I didn't know where to go. And for the first time, the thought hit me. Maybe this is it. Maybe I'll just disappear out here and nobody will even notice. I ended up curled behind the gas station by the dumpsters. I closed my eyes, but all I saw was Sierra's smug little face, fake crying as my parents shoved me out the door. She'd won. At least for now. I kept telling myself that someone, anyone, would eventually listen. Maybe the adults at school weren't totally blind. Maybe someone in my family would actually grow a backbone. I was wrong. It all started when my dad found me. I'm not sure how he knew where I was. Maybe Sierra told him. Maybe he just drove around until he spotted me. I was sitting on a park bench, hoodie pulled tight, when his car's headlights hit me. He pulled up so fast I thought he was going to run me over. "Get in the car," he barked, slamming his door. I stayed planted on the bench, gut twisting just from hearing his voice. "Now," he demanded. I shook my head. "Not unless you're ready to admit Sierra lied." His face twisted like I'd spit on him. "Don't you dare talk about your sister like that. She's been through enough because of you." "Through enough," I shot back. "She planted the money. She framed me and You're going to come home," he cut me off, stepping closer, pointing his finger like a weapon. "You're going to admit what you did, and you're going to apologize. Or I'll call the cops and tell them you've been stealing from stores, panhandling on the street. You understand me?" I gripped the trash bag tighter. "I'm not coming home to be treated like garbage again. You can call whoever you want, but I'm not admitting to something I didn't do." For a second I thought he was going to hit me. His fists clenched. His face went red. But then he turned around, got back in the car, and drove off, tires screeching. That's when it hit me. He didn't want the truth. He just wanted control. The next day at school, I went to the counselor. I thought, maybe if I just lay it all out, they'll believe me. I sat in that office, heart pounding, and told her everything. How Sierra planted the money. How she brags about it. How my parents kicked me out. She listened, nodding with that blank counselor expression. When I finished, she sighed. "Marcus, I understand you're under a lot of stress, but accusing your sister without proof isn't going to help. Your parents already spoke to us. They're worried about your behavior. They said you've been unstable." Unstable. That word hit me the hardest. Like I was some ticking bomb instead of a kid sleeping behind gas stations. "I'm telling the truth," I said, voice shaking. She just shook her head. "Focus on your schoolwork. The best way to prove to your family that you're trustworthy is through your actions. So basically, suck it up." That's what she meant. I tried one more angle. I called my aunt from a payphone outside the grocery store. She picked up cheerfully until she heard my voice. Her tone shifted as soon as I explained what happened. "Marcus, this isn't something I can get involved in. Your parents are doing what they think is best. Maybe if you just apologized." I hung up before she could finish. My own blood didn't want to touch this mess. Everyone wanted the easy version of the story. Marcus is a screw-up. Sierra is perfect. Case closed. That night I sat outside the gas station, back against the wall, sipping water I'd filled in the bathroom sink, trying to feel something in my stomach. A neon sign buzzed overhead. Cars pulled in and out, and I just sat there, invisible. Then I heard the voice I hated most. Wow, didn't think you'd last this long out here. I looked up and there she was, Sierra, holding a soda, casual as hell, like she was just stopping by to say hi. I glared. What do you want? She smirked. Curious, I guess. Wanted to see how long it'd take before you crawled back. My fists clenched. Why are you doing this to me? You think you had it rough? She shot back. Try being me. Mom and Dad never let me slip up. Not once. Every grade, every chore, every little thing I did got compared to you. If I messed up it was, don't be like your brother. That's all I ever heard. I frowned, but she kept going. Her voice low and steady. Now for once. I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to prove anything. All I have to do is not screw up like you. And honestly? That's easy. I'm not giving that up. You're sick, I muttered. Her grin widened. What's really sick is how easy it was. Everyone already thought you were the screw-up. I just gave them proof. I wanted to yell, shove her, something, but she leaned in closer, her voice dropping. And if you keep pushing it, if you keep running your mouth about me, I'll make up something even worse. Then you won't just be homeless, you'll be locked up. She said it so calmly, so confidently, it made my skin crawl. She wasn't bluffing, she was already planning her next move. She walked away like she hadn't just threatened to destroy what little I had left. And as I sat there in the glow of that gas station sign, it hit me. She doesn't just want me to look bad. She wants to erase me completely. That thought stayed with me for days. Every time I tried to sleep behind the gas station or walked around just to kill daylight, it played back in my head like an echo. Sierra didn't just want me gone, she wanted me erased like I never existed. By the third week I'd sunk lower than I ever imagined possible. My money was gone, my phone died, and I hadn't had a real meal in 2 days. I carried the trash bag everywhere, school, bus stops, parking lots. It wasn't even closed anymore. It was like a sign around my neck. Homeless loser. One night I tried hiding in the school library again. I figured if I hid deeper behind the shelves maybe I could avoid getting caught. Around midnight, a flashlight beam hit me right in the face. Security grabbed my arm and walked me outside. I already told you, you can't sleep here, kid. Try this one more time and I'm reporting you. Then you'll be suspended, he said with a smirk. It started raining shortly after. I walked for miles, rain pouring through my hoodie, shoes squishing with every step. My trash bag got so wet the plastic ripped and half my clothes spilled onto the sidewalk. I scooped them up anyway, clutching the bag tight. Everything smelled like mildew. I ended up under the awning of a closed laundromat. My stomach cramped with hunger, the kind that makes you lightheaded. That was my breaking point. I sat there shivering, thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe I'll just disappear out here and nobody will notice. That's when Jenna showed up. She came running up with an umbrella, hair stuck to her forehead, out of breath like she'd been searching. Marcus, why didn't you answer your phone? I've been looking everywhere. My phone's dead, I mumbled. Truth was I hadn't had a charger in weeks. She crouched next to me, ignoring the puddles soaking her jeans. You look awful. Thanks, I tried to laugh, but my voice cracked. She pressed a crumpled envelope into my hands. Here. Take it. I frowned. What is it? Just open it. Inside was about $75, mostly in small bills. My throat tightened. Jenna, I can't. You can. She cut me off. It's my allowance. I don't need it. You do. I couldn't even speak. I just nodded, clutching it like it was the most valuable thing in the world. She glanced around, then lowered her voice. There's something else. Sierra bragged at a party. I heard her myself. She told people she planted the money, that she set you up. My head snapped toward her. She admitted it? Yeah. But nobody believed her. They thought she was showing off. Some even said, even if it's true, he probably deserved it. It felt like getting kicked in the chest. Deserved it. That's what people think of me. I stood up, pacing under the awning. If I can get someone to back me up. They won't, Jenna said quietly. She's too popular. Nobody wants to cross her. They all think you're already a lost cause. The silence between us said everything. It wasn't just my parents. Everyone had written me off. That night I sat in the laundromat doorway, soaking wet, clothes stinking, stomach churning. As I stared at the street, something inside me hardened. If nobody's going to stand up for me, I'll have to do it myself. That evening after cleaning up in a gas station bathroom, I grabbed my damp trash bag and started walking. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I was just done. When I turned onto our street, my chest tightened. The house looked the same, white siding, flower pots on the porch, the place I grew up in, but it wasn't mine anymore. I stood there for a long time, rain dripping off my hood, before walking up the driveway. I was going to walk through that door and make them hear me. Whether they liked it or not. My fist hit the door 3 times, loud enough to sting my knuckles. For a second, nothing. Then footsteps. The door creaked open, and there was Sierra, like she'd been waiting. Her eyebrows shot up, twisting into a sneer. Well, look who crawled back. I shoved past her before she could stop me. My wet shoes squeaked across the hardwood. I'm not here to stay. I'm here to talk. Mom's voice came from the living room. Marcus. A second later she appeared, drying her hands on a dish towel. Dad followed, arms crossed, face already red. Out. Now. No, I said, chest heaving. You're going to hear me this time. You've believed her lies long enough. Tonight you're going to hear mine. Dad took a step forward, looming over me. Watch your tone. You don't get to barge into this house. Watch my tone, I said, louder than I meant to. You threw me out with a trash bag because Sierra cried and waved some bills around. You didn't even ask for my side, not once. Because we know you, Dad snapped. You've always been reckless, Marcus. Always jealous. Dad's face hardened, but I pushed on, fire building in my chest. Jealous? Let's talk about that. Remember when she copied my science project? Teacher called home and you punished me for making her cheat. She cried and you believed her. Always the same story. She's the angel, I'm the screw-up, doesn't matter what actually happened. Dad clenched his jaw. For a split second, I saw something flicker in his eyes. He knew I was right. He knew it. But instead of admitting it, he doubled down. He stepped closer, smell of aftershave and anger hitting me. Don't you stand here and disgrace this family. You've done nothing but drag this house down since you were a kid. You want me to admit we favored her? Fine. We did. But she earned it. She keeps her grades up, helps your mother, stays out of trouble. You can't even keep a roof over your head. The words landed harder than a fist. My fists curled, but I forced myself to stay standing. I can't keep a roof because you threw me out, because she framed me, and you believed her without a second thought. Behind him, Sierra leaned against the wall, sipping from a glass of water like she was watching TV, a sneer on her face. I turned toward her. Go on. Swear right now you didn't plant that money. Look me in the eye and swear it. She tilted her head, lips twitching like she was about to laugh. Sure, I swear, she said, voice dripping with sarcasm. I pointed at her, my voice breaking. You hear that? You can't even take her seriously. She's lying to your faces and you're still falling for it. Dad's face went hot, fists curling again. Then out of nowhere he grabbed a glass from the table and threw it at me. His aim was off. It exploded on the wall right next to my head. Shards rained down, cutting my arm and cheek. Blood dripped, but he just pointed at the door, voice low and shaking with rage. Get out before I call the cops and tell them you broke in. You want to keep making scenes? Fine. You can do it from a jail cell. I steadied myself, breath ragged, chest pounding, throat burning, but I refused to cry. You've made your choice, I said quietly. You picked her. You always pick her. One day you're going to see her for what she is. And when that happens, don't come looking for me. The room went silent except for Sierra's soft laugh. Wow, she said under her breath, shaking her head. Drama much? I grabbed my bag from the floor and turned toward the door. Every step felt heavy, like I was dragging chains. At the threshold I spun around one more time looking at all of them. My parents frozen, Sierra smirking. You think I'm the problem? Fine. But when the truth blows up in your faces, remember this moment. Remember I warned you. Then I yanked the door open, stepped into the dark and slammed it behind me. The cold air hit my face, mixing with the sting of the shallow cuts on my arm. I walked fast, jaw tight, like putting enough distance between me and that house would let me breathe again. I got halfway down the block before I heard footsteps. Quick and uneven, like someone was jogging to catch up. Wait up, bro. I spun around, heart pounding. And there she was, Sierra, jogging after me, calm as ever, her face glowing under the dim streetlight. She was smiling like this was a game, like Dad hadn't just tried to shatter me with a glass seconds ago. As Sierra stepped onto the porch, I thought I heard the screen door squeak behind her, but I was too focused on her smug smirk to pay attention. My stomach flipped. "What do you want now?" I demanded, sharper than I meant. She slowed to a walk, slipping her hands into her hoodie pocket, relaxed like she was out for a late stroll. "Relax. I just wanted to see how far you'd actually take this." I glared, fists tightening, arms aching from the cuts. "Farther than you think. I'm done letting you run the show." Her grin widened, teeth catching the streetlight. "You still don't get it, do you? Nobody's ever going to believe you. You can scream, cry, bleed all over the sidewalk. It won't matter. To them, you'll always be the screw-up. And I'll always be the one they're proud of." "Proud?" I sneered, shaking my head. "You destroyed me." "Destroyed you?" she repeated, tilting her head like I'd said something funny. Then her voice dropped, crueler. "I didn't destroy you. I just gave them proof of what they already believed. That was the smartest thing I've ever done." My stomach turned. My chest tightened. "Say it again," I said, stepping closer. She leaned in, voice a whisper like she wanted to savor every word. My sister screamed, "He stole it," and Dad dragged me out into the freezing night. 3 weeks later, she was exposed, and Dad begged me to return. I'm Marcus, 19 now, but I was 16 when this all went down. If you'd asked anyone in my family to describe me back then, they'd probably say, the problem child. That's what I was to them. The screw-up, the disappointment, the one who could never do anything right. My dad was one of those old-school types who believed respect only flows one direction, up. You give it to him without question, or you get the sharp edge of his temper and sometimes worse. My mom? She was his echo chamber, repeating every harsh word like it was scripture. And then there was Sierra, my sister, 2 years younger but somehow the golden child of the entire operation. Sierra could literally burn down the kitchen making microwave popcorn, and Dad would call it a learning opportunity. I'd forget to take out the trash one time and suddenly I'm irresponsible and going nowhere fast. That's how it always was. Everything she did got excused or praised. Everything I did proved I was destined to fail. When she aced a test, it was because she was naturally smart and hardworking. When I aced a test, it was dumb luck. She was the angel. I was the anchor dragging the family down. I always knew it was unfair, but I never thought she'd weaponize it the way she did that night. It started like any other evening. I was in my room on my ancient laptop, half downloading music and half pretending to do homework. It was late, maybe close to midnight. My door flew open so hard it slammed into the wall, and both my parents stormed in like I'd triggered some kind of alarm. Mom's face was flushed red. Dad's forehead veins were bulging. And behind them, Sierra was putting on an Oscar-worthy performance, sobbing so hard you'd think someone died. "He stole it," she wailed, pointing straight at me. "I saw him take it from Dad's wallet." "What?" I sat up, completely confused. Dad was already tearing through my room like a detective on a cop show. He grabbed my pillow, lifted it up, and there it was. A wad of crumpled bills, maybe $350 to $400, stuffed underneath. I swear my stomach dropped through the floor. "I told you," Sierra choked out, fake tears streaming down her cheeks. My brain couldn't even process it. I hadn't touched his wallet. I hadn't been anywhere near it. But before I could get a word out, Dad was in my face, jabbing his finger into my chest. "You've embarrassed this family for the last goddamn time. You think we haven't noticed things going missing before? You think we're idiots?" I shot up, shaking my head. "That's not mine. She planted it. She's lying. Why would I steal money when I've been saving every dollar I make from babysitting and mowing lawns? Ask Mrs. Chen next door." "Enough!" he barked so loud the window rattled. "A liar and a thief. You've turned this house into a joke." I looked at Mom for backup, but she wouldn't even meet my eyes. She just repeated whatever Dad said like it was the law. Meanwhile, Sierra stood behind them with her head down, playing the traumatized saint. But I caught it. That tiny smirk, that flicker of satisfaction on her lips as Dad started throwing my stuff into a trash bag like I was garbage they were tossing out. "Dad, please." "It's not true," I said, my voice cracking. But it didn't matter. He grabbed my backpack from the corner, dumped it on the bed and started shoving random clothes inside. Mom started to say something, but one glare from Dad shut her up immediately. Sierra let out a huge sniffle. "I'm scared to even be in the same house as him. What if he gets violent? What if he hurts me? That hurt worse than anything." I spun toward her, heart pounding. "What are you talking about? I've never touched you. I've never—" But the damage was done. Dad's jaw clenched. That's it. Out. Now. They shoved the bags into my arms and dragged me down the hallway, Sierra trailing behind, whispering just loud enough for me to hear. I told you they'd believe me. When we got to the front door, Dad yanked it open. The night air hit me like a slap, freezing cold. I was still barefoot, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt. Dad shoved me onto the porch so hard I stumbled. My sneakers were sitting right by the door, so I grabbed them before he could slam it shut completely. You don't come back here until you're ready to admit what you did and apologize to your sister, he said, his voice cold and final. I didn't do anything. I choked out, my throat raw. She's lying to you. She set me up. Don't you dare talk about her like that, Dad snapped. She's been nothing but good to this family. You're jealous, Marcus. Jealous and bitter. The door slammed shut, rattling the glass. For a moment I just stood there, trash bag slipping from my hands, waiting for it to swing back open. Waiting for them to realize they'd just kicked out their own son over some crocodile tears and planted cash. It never did. I sat down on the porch steps, shivering, staring out at the quiet street. I wasn't just grounded. I wasn't just in trouble. I was out. Exiled. 15 years old, standing outside my own house with nothing but a trash bag of clothes and a backpack. I knew then that Sierra had won. She had their trust, their love, their blind loyalty. And I was disposable. I remember clutching that trash bag like it was a lifeline, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. Part of me wanted to pound on the door until they listened, another part knew it wouldn't matter. They'd made their choice, and as I finally stepped off that porch and started walking into the night, one thought burned brighter than the rest. They chose to believe her lies over my truth. That's when I realized I wasn't just the black sheep. I'd already been cut out of the herd. The first night I just walked around the block until my legs hurt. I wasn't even sure where I was going. It was late, freezing, and I was clutching a trash bag like some kind of runaway. I thought about crashing at the park, but the benches were soaked from the sprinklers. Then I remembered. Jenna lived a few blocks over. She'd been my best friend since middle school, so I figured maybe her parents would let me crash for the night. Her eyes went wide when she saw me standing there in sweatpants, holding a trash bag. She pulled me inside fast, whispered questions, and I told her they'd kick me out. She didn't look surprised, just sad. She gave me a blanket on the floor and some leftover pizza, and I slept better than I had in weeks. Her mom wasn't as sympathetic. The next morning she pulled me aside. She wasn't mean, just blunt. Marcus, you can stay a couple nights, but I can't afford another mouth to feed. You're gonna have to figure something else out. I nodded, pretending it was fine, but my stomach twisted. By the third night, Jenna's mom drove me to school early and told me I couldn't come back. That was it. I stuffed my trash bag into my locker and pretended I had somewhere else to go. From then on, I started couch surfing. A classmate let me crash on their couch one night. Another let me stay in their basement, but only for one night. People didn't want to deal with my family drama. After about a week, I ran out of options. That's when I started sleeping wherever I could, behind the gas station, in a corner near the dumpsters where the light didn't reach. I tried hiding in the library until closing, but the security guard found me after a couple nights and kicked me out. I even tried the school bathroom once, locking myself in a stall, but someone came in, saw my bag, and word spread fast. Hunger was worse than the cold. I had maybe $50 saved from mowing lawns and babysitting. That money disappeared fast on cheap burgers and vending machine snacks. After that, I either skipped meals or drank from water fountains. My stomach growled so loud in class I'd get stares. School didn't make things easier either. Sierra worked fast. By the end of the first week, everyone had heard the story. How I stole money from my dad. How I got kicked out. She made it sound like I was a junkie in training. Kids pulled their backpacks closer when I sat near them. Teachers gave me long looks that said they'd already been warned about me. One girl in math class moved her notebook as I sat down. "Sorry, I don't want my stuff stolen," she muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. The whole row snickered. I wanted to scream, but I knew it wouldn't help. One day in the hallway, Tyler, some basketball player, shoulder-checked me hard and yelled, "Watch your hands, thief." I shoved him back on reflex, and for a second I thought we were about to throw down. A teacher broke it up, but I got the warning. Not him. "One more incident, Marcus, and you're suspended." I heard it everywhere. Sierra's responsible with money, unlike some people. I'd catch her glance across the cafeteria, give me that tiny smirk, then go back to her perfect act with her friends. She was enjoying it. By the second week, I was a ghost at my own school. Nobody wanted me around. I sat alone, ate alone when I had food, and pretended I didn't care. But inside, it was eating me alive. Nights were the worst. I'd curl up with my backpack as a pillow and my hoodie over my face, hoping cops wouldn't hassle me or some drunk wouldn't stumble by. The cold concrete made my back ache. My shoes reeked from walking miles every day just to kill time, and all I could think was, my own family did this to me. Not strangers, not enemies. My sister. One night I tried sneaking back into the library. I figured if I hid better, maybe they wouldn't notice. I tucked myself behind a row of shelves, using my bag as a pillow. Around midnight, the guard's flashlight hit me right in the eyes. He shook his head. "You can't stay here, kid." He walked me out the side door like I was trespassing. I didn't know where to go. And for the first time, the thought hit me. Maybe this is it. Maybe I'll just disappear out here and nobody will even notice. I ended up curled behind the gas station by the dumpsters. I closed my eyes, but all I saw was Sierra's smug little face, fake crying as my parents shoved me out the door. She'd won. At least for now. I kept telling myself that someone, anyone, would eventually listen. Maybe the adults at school weren't totally blind. Maybe someone in my family would actually grow a backbone. I was wrong. It all started when my dad found me. I'm not sure how he knew where I was. Maybe Sierra told him. Maybe he just drove around until he spotted me. I was sitting on a park bench, hoodie pulled tight, when his car's headlights hit me. He pulled up so fast I thought he was going to run me over. "Get in the car," he barked, slamming his door. I stayed planted on the bench, gut twisting just from hearing his voice. "Now," he demanded. I shook my head. "Not unless you're ready to admit Sierra lied." His face twisted like I'd spit on him. "Don't you dare talk about your sister like that. She's been through enough because of you." "Through enough," I shot back. "She planted the money. She framed me and You're going to come home," he cut me off, stepping closer, pointing his finger like a weapon. "You're going to admit what you did, and you're going to apologize. Or I'll call the cops and tell them you've been stealing from stores, panhandling on the street. You understand me?" I gripped the trash bag tighter. "I'm not coming home to be treated like garbage again. You can call whoever you want, but I'm not admitting to something I didn't do." For a second I thought he was going to hit me. His fists clenched. His face went red. But then he turned around, got back in the car, and drove off, tires screeching. That's when it hit me. He didn't want the truth. He just wanted control. The next day at school, I went to the counselor. I thought, maybe if I just lay it all out, they'll believe me. I sat in that office, heart pounding, and told her everything. How Sierra planted the money. How she brags about it. How my parents kicked me out. She listened, nodding with that blank counselor expression. When I finished, she sighed. "Marcus, I understand you're under a lot of stress, but accusing your sister without proof isn't going to help. Your parents already spoke to us. They're worried about your behavior. They said you've been unstable." Unstable. That word hit me the hardest. Like I was some ticking bomb instead of a kid sleeping behind gas stations. "I'm telling the truth," I said, voice shaking. She just shook her head. "Focus on your schoolwork. The best way to prove to your family that you're trustworthy is through your actions. So basically, suck it up." That's what she meant. I tried one more angle. I called my aunt from a payphone outside the grocery store. She picked up cheerfully until she heard my voice. Her tone shifted as soon as I explained what happened. "Marcus, this isn't something I can get involved in. Your parents are doing what they think is best. Maybe if you just apologized." I hung up before she could finish. My own blood didn't want to touch this mess. Everyone wanted the easy version of the story. Marcus is a screw-up. Sierra is perfect. Case closed. That night I sat outside the gas station, back against the wall, sipping water I'd filled in the bathroom sink, trying to feel something in my stomach. A neon sign buzzed overhead. Cars pulled in and out, and I just sat there, invisible. Then I heard the voice I hated most. "Wow, didn't think you'd last this long out here." I looked up and there she was, Sierra, holding a soda, casual as hell, like she was just stopping by to say hi. I glared. "What do you want?" She smirked. "Curious, I guess. Wanted to see how long it'd take before you crawled back." My fists clenched. "Why are you doing this to me?" "You think you had it rough?" She shot back. "Try being me." Mom and Dad never let me slip up. Not once. Every grade, every chore, every little thing I did got compared to you. If I messed up it was, "Don't be like your brother." That's all I ever heard. I frowned, but she kept going. Her voice low and steady. Now for once. I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to prove anything. All I have to do is not screw up like you. And honestly? That's easy. I'm not giving that up. You're sick, I muttered. Her grin widened. What's really sick is how easy it was. Everyone already thought you were the screw-up. I just gave them proof. I wanted to yell, shove her, something, but she leaned in closer, her voice dropping. And if you keep pushing it, if you keep running your mouth about me, I'll make up something even worse. Then you won't just be homeless, you'll be locked up. She said it so calmly, so confidently, it made my skin crawl. She wasn't bluffing, she was already planning her next move. She walked away like she hadn't just threatened to destroy what little I had left. And as I sat there in the glow of that gas station sign, it hit me. She doesn't just want me to look bad. She wants to erase me completely. That thought stayed with me for days. Every time I tried to sleep behind the gas station or walked around just to kill daylight, it played back in my head like an echo. Sierra didn't just want me gone, she wanted me erased like I never existed. By the third week I'd sunk lower than I ever imagined possible. My money was gone, my phone died, and I hadn't had a real meal in 2 days. I carried the trash bag everywhere, school, bus stops, parking lots. It wasn't even closed anymore. It was like a sign around my neck. Homeless loser. One night I tried hiding in the school library again. I figured if I hid deeper behind the shelves maybe I could avoid getting caught. Around midnight, a flashlight beam hit me right in the face. Security grabbed my arm and walked me outside. I already told you, you can't sleep here, kid. Try this one more time and I'm reporting you. Then you'll be suspended, he said with a smirk. It started raining shortly after. I walked for miles, rain pouring through my hoodie, shoes squishing with every step. My trash bag got so wet the plastic ripped and half my clothes spilled onto the sidewalk. I scooped them up anyway, clutching the bag tight. Everything smelled like mildew. I ended up under the awning of a closed laundromat. My stomach cramped with hunger, the kind that makes you lightheaded. That was my breaking point. I sat there shivering, thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe I'll just disappear out here and nobody will notice. That's when Jenna showed up. She came running up with an umbrella, hair stuck to her forehead, out of breath like she'd been searching. Marcus, why didn't you answer your phone? I've been looking everywhere. My phone's dead, I mumbled. Truth was I hadn't had a charger in weeks. She crouched next to me, ignoring the puddles soaking her jeans. You look awful. Thanks, I tried to laugh, but my voice cracked. She pressed a crumpled envelope into my hands. Here. Take it. I frowned. What is it? Just open it. Inside was about $75, mostly in small bills. My throat tightened. Jenna, I can't. You can. She cut me off. It's my allowance. I don't need it. You do. I couldn't even speak. I just nodded, clutching it like it was the most valuable thing in the world. She glanced around, then lowered her voice. There's something else. Sierra bragged at a party. I heard her myself. She told people she planted the money, that she set you up. My head snapped toward her. She admitted it? Yeah. But nobody believed her. They thought she was showing off. Some even said, even if it's true, he probably deserved it. It felt like getting kicked in the chest. Deserved it. That's what people think of me. I stood up, pacing under the awning. If I can get someone to back me up. They won't, Jenna said quietly. She's too popular. Nobody wants to cross her. They all think you're already a lost cause. The silence between us said everything. It wasn't just my parents. Everyone had written me off. That night I sat in the laundromat doorway, soaking wet, clothes stinking, stomach churning. As I stared at the street, something inside me hardened. If nobody's going to stand up for me, I'll have to do it myself. That evening, after cleaning up in a gas station bathroom, I grabbed my damp trash bag and started walking. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I was just done. When I turned onto our street, my chest tightened. The house looked the same, white siding, flower pots on the porch, the place I grew up in, but it wasn't mine anymore. I stood there for